Tuesday, September 20th. Welcome. Our vice chair has just arrived. Welcome. Let's go down. May I have roll call, please?
Okay, here we go. Chair Miller,
Here.
Vice Chair Kalas,
Here.
Board Member Anderson,
Here.
Board Member Arkelian,
Here.
and Board Member Klein.
Here.
We'll have a quorum. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Moving down to general business, item A, public comment. Any member of the public may address the board for up to 2 minutes on any subject within the jurisdiction that is not scheduled on this agenda for a public discussion. Do we have anyone that would like to speak or online?
Hey, if anyone online would like to speak on general public comment, not anything regarding items on the agenda, please raise your hand. It's the icon at the bottom of your screen. Okay, is there anyone in the room who'd like to make a public comment for general? Hey, I don't see any raised hands. I do not see any raised hands on Zoom, so public comment is closed. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Moving on to item B, approval of the minutes on the Single Family Design Board for September 12th, 2022. Can we go through those items, please?
Sure. We had item 101 Santa Cruz Boulevard. Was continued to the staff hearing officer for return to the full board with the following comments. Item 2, 507 Allen Road. Was continued to date certain October 3rd to the SFDB consent calendar with the following comments. Item 3, 1322 Dover Road. Was continued indefinitely to the full board with the following comments. Item 4, 3002 Seacliff. Was continued indefinitely to Planning Commission for return to full board with comments. Item 5, 130 Camino Alto Road. Was continued indefinitely to full board with comments. Item 6, 1269 Farello Road. Was continued indefinitely to full board with comments. That concludes these meeting minutes.
All right, thank you. May I have a motion for approval, please?
I'll move.
May I have a second?
I'll second.
Can I have a roll call, please?
There we go. Chair Miller,
Yes?
Vice Chair Collas,
Yes.
Board Member Anderson,
Yes.
Board Member Killian,
Yes.
and Board Member Klein.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
All right, great, thank you. Moving on to the consent calendar for September 19th, 2022. Can we go through those items, please?
Yes. Item A, 934 East Haley Street. Received final approval with the comment that the project plans demonstrate substantial conformance to the plans that previously received project design approval. Item B, 2433 Kai Soria. Received project design approval and final approval with the required findings. Item C, 1713 Wassoon Road. Received project design approval and final approval with the required findings. That concludes the meeting minutes.
I have an edit for the item C, 1D. It's an incense cedar tree, not Theodore tree. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you. Noted. We'll make the correction.
All right, thank you. May I have a roll call, please?
No one made a motion yet.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can I
I'll
have
make a motion for approval.
May I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, may I have a roll call, please?
Here we go. Chair Miller,
Yes.
Vice Chair Collas,
Yes.
Board Member Anderson,
Yes.
Board Member Killian,
Yes.
Board Member Klein.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Moving on to announcements, requests by applicants for continuances and withdrawals, future agenda items, and appeals. Does anyone from the city have anything they would like to say, or anyone else have an announcement? I do, when someone's ready.
Sure. Go ahead. I also have a quick announcement when you're done.
Okay, so I do know that we are televised, and so usually, as me, when I watch the television, I usually watch the first 10 minutes, and that's enough because it kind of drags on. So I wanted to underline something that's been hitting our board quite a bit and make some clarification and understanding of who we are and what we represent. First off, we're volunteers. We don't get paid here. We don't have an investment or an interest in any of these particular projects. We're here based on a city charter. We're not even a city government agency. We're part of the community. We were created by the community to support the community, and in particular, the architectural heritage and legacy of this town, which is extremely unusual, but that's what Santa Barbara is. So we've been having several projects that have come in, and I don't want to brag, but most of my projects that I come through the city either go through consent or are administratively approved. Not because I'm really good, but because I follow the design guidelines. If you fight the design guidelines, you're going to lengthen your project. It's going to cost a lot of money, and chances are a neighborhood's going to show up, and we're going to spend an enormous amount of time arguing over your project. We get people coming in here with their lawyers. They come in with certain people to defend the reasoning why they are not following the guidelines. But bottom line, it's really simple to just follow the design guidelines. So a couple items I want to, it's a checkoff list. And I think it's important for architects and designers to communicate with their clients that what the design guidelines are, and they are consistency and appearance. Specifically requires that the project will enhance the neighborhood. Now, what does that mean? Compatibility. The proposed development will be compatible with the neighborhood, and its size, bulk, and scale will be appropriate to the site. Neighborhood study area is defined by the 20 closest lots to the home. It's not about cherry picking houses out 5 blocks away and saying, oh, that looks like that. This is what this, no, it's very clear and specific. The closest 20 homes right next door, right across the street, those adjacent homes are what we're going to look at in terms of neighborhood compatibility. Does it mean the house has to look like the new house? No, it's just got to blend in. It's like there's a fabric. If the neighborhood is 50s tract house, then I would encourage the designer to think of how do you make your design fit in with a 50s tract house look? If it's Spanish colonial, which is a preference of this community, then you should, go in that direction. If it's modern, then make it modern. But don't put a Monticello in the middle of a tract home neighborhood. It's just that's kind of the basic point of that whole compatibility issue. And I also want to underline where that comes from. This board was not created because of some random thought. It was born on a major project that occurred in the Mesa about, 11 years ago now. And it was a Victorian home, 3-story Victorian home. And they were putting it in the middle of these 1-story homes that were built in the early 50s. And the whole neighborhood was up in arms. And it came before the board, and at that time I think it was the Board of Architectural Review, and it literally dragged the boards on till 9 or 10 o'clock at night because all these neighbors were really upset. And that's sort of where they split the 2 design boards. So you have ABR, which is commercial, and you have Single Family Design Board, which is us, which is primarily residential. And now, even with that, our Single Family Design Board is backed up, and that's why we're having this special session. So I want to make it clear, we're all volunteering our time to be at a session to hopefully get yourself approved on an extra night. And I am an architect too. Well, I'm not licensed, but I do have clients. So I am very sensitive to what clients want. I know clients get really pissed off when things drag on. I had a particular client that came when this Single Family Design Board first came to fruition, where Bill Mahan basically said, no, you can't add a second story. Now, fortunately for us, we can't say that anymore, but that made my client so upset, he walked out and stood me up about $2,500. So I am sensitive to clients' needs and wishes. I also get emails from clients thanking me for what we are doing. I get architects and designers who email thanking me because they know their client is pushing them in a direction that they don't really want to go, and they don't want to be the bad guy, so we end up being the bad guy. But my point being is that the city is very good, if you look at their website, about the design guide criteria. There's a checkoff list that clearly tells you how to avoid coming to this board. And that's kind of what you want to do. Trust me. So enough with that. That's my tirade for today, so we'll go on to our next item.
Thank you, Chair Miller. Actually, on that note, we did just want to recognize the board members in attendance here today because we are hosting a special hearing on an additional night, and you are all volunteers, so we are grateful that it assists with the backlog of projects. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, and I don't believe we have any subcommittee reports to talk about, so we'll move on to our first item.
Chair Miller, if I
Yes.
could make one more
Yes, Ellen,
announcement.
please.
I'm sorry, I was taken just moments ago. So I just want to share with this board that on October 4th at the Ordinance Committee will be it will open up the conversation about changing the Single Family Design Board membership. And that's just based on the issues that we've had with quorum recently. So reducing the number of members from 7 to 5, and that way that quorum would be 3 instead of 4. So that reduces the amount of stress on a weekly basis and kind of the weekly annoyances of, like, are we meeting quorum? And so it also changes the makeup of that and not necessarily requiring the licensure of that. So it's opening up the conversation at ordinance committee on the 4th, and then subsequently it will be going to city council. You'll have the opportunity to submit any public comment or speak on it with any kind of expertise, and I'll keep you abreast of those dates. But I just wanted to put that on your radar. And again, we introduced that idea at the Land Development Oversight Subcommittee meeting, which is a council subcommittee, and that's where Chair Miller spoke on behalf of, or was able to share his thoughts. So they were supportive of it, and that's why we're following up on that, so we can deal with these quorum issues sooner rather than later. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much.
Can I ask a question of staff? Will that be publicized?
Yeah, so the,
meeting?
you'll be able to watch it streaming, and there's public comment available. And yes, it's part of the ordinance. And I mean, you could also show up in person as another alternative. It's October 4th, and I need to look at the exact time, but we can email you. But again, any insight would be appreciated, and from your perspective. And again, I think they understand some of the challenges that you all faced, especially with the heavy workload and the number of projects that makes it difficult when we have to cancel a meeting. So again, much appreciated that you're here.
Thank you very much. Okay, let's move on to item number 1, 3239 Cliff Drive. This is a continued item. Project design approval and final approval is requested. Read into the record, it's a proposal to demolish an existing 2,341 square foot single unit residence, 600 square foot detached garage, and 610 square foot barn, and construct a new 2-story, 3,622 square foot single unit residence with a crawl space and a 484 square foot detached garage. Project includes new covered patio areas, a pool and spa, sports court, an associated landscape, hardscape, and stormwater improvements. Additional improvements include realigning the existing driveway to correct a historical encroachment, along with minor improvements on the neighbor's property at 3233 Cliff Drive. Planning Commission granted approval of a coastal development permit on May 19th, 2022. The proposed total of 4,106 square foot of development is on a 60,751 square foot lot, is 79% of the maximum guideline floor lot area ratio. Again, project design approval and final approval are requested. Neighborhood preservation findings, hillside design district, and slope lot findings and grading findings are required. Project was last reviewed on February 28th, 2022. And can we read into the record the minutes from February 28th?
Sure. All right. So the project, oh, sorry, that's right. 3, 2, 3.
Oh, here we are.
Okay. The size, bulk, and scale of the project is compatible with the neighborhood. The board appreciates the minimal approach to the landscaping, especially the lighting, given the relationship to the bluffs and the bucolic neighborhood. The board appreciates the applicant's attempt to mitigate noise emanating from the sports court. The board appreciates the applicant's sensitive approach to the retention of native vegetation on site, specifically the oak trees. The board expects the project to be ready for project design approval and final approval when the project returns to the full board.
All right, thank you. Well, I guess you'll just have, I notice it's all positive comments, so if you just want to go through the plans and make sure they're complete and that your details and landscaping is compatible with what you originally presented.
I'll introduce the team real quick. Steve Fort with Suzanne Elledge Planning and Permitting, Mark Kirkhart with Design Arc, Thomas with Design Arc, and then we have Scott Capps with EPT Design, our landscape architect. And our clients are also, the Raskovs are also monitoring via Zoom today as well. Appreciate the special hearing and that you guys have a quorum. I'll just reiterate what Ms. Garson said before. Real quick, if you guys don't want to hear this, tell me, but I just wanted to ask and request that you guys, after hearing the presentation, make those neighborhood preservation findings and the grading findings and the hillside findings. I think we're all good with those, and as reflected in your minutes, I won't go into detail on that. We really aren't removing any vegetation. No specimen trees are being removed. We have had contact with both neighbors on each side. That's all been positive. We've even shared the landscape plan with one of the neighbors that requested it. So I know you guys want to move along, so I won't go into too much detail
Well-
on that, but if you have questions about it, we need to talk about it, I'm
Based on
here.
the minutes, you did get design approval, so you're
Yep.
kind of off the hook in that regard. We
Yep.
just want to make sure that your plans are
Yep.
complete.
All right, so we'll dive in with that.
Mark Kirkhart, Principal Design Architects. So this project that you're seeing today is essentially the very same thing you saw back in February, with two minor adjustments. It's the same height, same massing, same number of square feet. So all of that is the same, but pretty much the same materiality that we showed you, which we'll show you a little bit more in detail. But we removed an exterior stair that we had going down from a second floor bedroom that was going to be used as a yoga deck. We've decided to remove that exterior stair. And then the only other thing that we did is we've added a small depressed roof deck over the top of the kitchen that is actually in a well. It doesn't have any guardrails. This is the view of what it looks like modeled. It's basically 3.5 feet down from the roof line, so there's no guardrail showing. There's no overhead structure of any kind. So what it does is it allows that second floor room, which is kind of like an ante room to the primary bedroom, to kind of have a release to the outdoors and bring more light into the kind of central stairwell. That's literally the only thing that's changed massing wise, or I mean, not even really massing. It's the same within the same envelope that you saw last time. We could go to the materiality if you wanted to see that. We've also have all the details. Scott will be here to talk about the landscape and also go in as much detail as you'd like to know about the lighting, which is all taking into consideration the night sky ordinance. Everything is pointing down, et cetera. So here's the material palette. It's a warm, kind of natural color material palette, painted metal fascias, in a very kind of a dark umber kind of color, dark bronze anodized windows. The plaster is going to be kind of a goldish, steel troweled mottled finish. We have a dark stained wood siding that's be like an Alaskan yellow cedar that kind of goes along on the attic story to kind of accentuate that attic story, which we think the attic story kind of also helps mitigate the height of the building. It makes it look more horizontal. Flat roof. This flat roof is not visible from anywhere. There's no houses above looking down on it, so we can do a nice reflective roof for Title 24. So that's kind of the idea there. Really, nothing else has really changed beyond that. If you want me to go into any more detail, I can. Maybe you can show them the window details. It's very minimalist detailing. It's a warm, kind of a modern approach, exactly as you'd seen before. So it's fully detailed. The stormwater management is completely worked out. And to take into account also the fact that we have the sport court to add some more runoff. So that's all fully shown. We have the full civil engineering drawings here if you want to review those as well. So not sure how much more detail you'd like me to go into. I'm just here to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, is that
Turn it over to Scott, landscape architect.
Okay. Hi.
Scott Capps, landscape architect with EPT Design. As Steve and Mark both mentioned, no real changes to the site design. We've only added more information to our drawings. As Steve mentioned, we're not removing any existing oak trees on site. We are removing 10 non-native species. We're planting 10 new coast live oaks, as well as 6 other non-native trees. Looking at irrigation, the site's going to be irrigated with a combination of high efficiency drip irrigation and mass precipitation overhead spray, where we're using quite a few California native plants. I think the big piece for both the irrigation and planting plans is we are not doing any new development on the coastal bluff. The one native lawn we have within that setback is going to be hand watered, so no permanent irrigation within that zone. We can flip to the planting sheets, Thomas. Yeah, that 301. So Same exact design intent from prior drawing package. We've simply added more planting information and getting more detailed plant species. In general, we are planting California natives as you come in along the driveway for somewhat of a native meadow approach. Underneath the oaks is more of an oak woodland palette, again, mainly California natives. As you get up around the house, it's a mix of ornamental, drought-tolerant grasses with succulent planting, and then on the south edge, a native lawn, and again, really only just spotted planting on the bluff where we need to infill.
Okay,
Yeah, we can flip this site lighting, Thomas. I think it's a couple pages after this. There's the interior sheets. I think the site plan is LT3. So as Mark mentioned at the top, all the lighting is going to be hooded. It's going to be pointed down, very much in line with the night sky ordinance. We're really just keeping lighting for wayfinding and just up around the house. Again, no, beams of light will be directed towards neighboring properties. It's all just directed down to our hard site.
okay, thank you very much. Did we get any public comment?
At this time, I'd like to open up public comment. For those of you viewing on Zoom, please raise your hand. That's the icon at the bottom of your screen if you'd like to comment on this particular item. 3239 Cliff Drive. I have not received any speaker slips for this item. Is anyone in the room? Please raise your hand if you'd like to speak on this item. Not seeing any raised hands and not seeing any raised hands on Zoom. Public comment is closed on this item.
All right, thank you. I'll bring it back to the board for questions, so I'll just go down the list. Vice Chair Kalas, do you have any questions, please?
Just a couple small questions. Is there any lighting that's going up the driveway? I know you kind of focused on the lighting immediately around the house, but I'm just wondering, I thought I saw some lighting. I'm just wondering, if so, what the spacing is on that lighting?
So all the site lighting shown along the driveway is going to be tree mounted and pointed down.
Okay.
And again, it's mainly just for circulation and wayfinding.
Okay. So there's no sort of in-ground lighting? Okay.
No.
Great. Stormwater management, as I recall, this was going to be managed like, is that what you're showing there? Is that a leach field for septic, or is that part of the stormwater management plan?
Those long rectangulars are septic leach field.
Okay.
And if you go to the left of the driveway, right where the cursor is, that is, I think it's called like a linear dissipator or something that's going to dissipate stormwater off to that portion of the site and down that way towards Cliff.
Okay. And are the gutters to the home, are those tied into that, or? I'm getting 4 nods of affirmation.
Through
Okay.
planters and
Okay.
Down through the site through planters and
Okay, great.
down to that.
And then if we can just go back to the color palette versus the exterior elevations, I think it's just a rendering issue. I just want to understand, I'm assuming the renderings would be more reflective of the color palette than maybe the scan of the finishes is. So the reason I'm asking is just the renderings are very warm, and then when you look off to the right, it tends to be a cooler palette, and neither one is here nor there, but just for the record, it would be nice to know what we anticipate it really to feel like out in the field once it's built.
The rendering has turned out very high contrast, which I think is kind of exaggerating that a little bit, but it is intended to be a warm palette. I mean, even the neutral gray, the dark, kind of a dark, almost a bronze color for the fascias, and any of the exposed steel. That's like I say, it's a very kind of a warm brownish black.
Okay.
And then the stucco, the plaster that we're showing down below there, the exterior smooth steel trowel that's, kind of a very warm white.
Yep.
If you're familiar with the Fleetwood windows, their dark bronze is very dark. They almost call it
Almost
black
black, yeah.
nowadays, but it's still slightly brown, slightly warmer. So that's the intent, for it to be a warm neutral
Okay.
palette.
That's exactly why I was asking, because it just comes off as very black, and the cement is a little bit warmer, and so that was the only reason for the question.
We'll have, I think the city wants us to turn in an actual board for them to take to the site at final.
Yeah.
With the actual samples as opposed to a digital rendition, which will be much clearer.
Okay, great. Those were my only questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you. It's kind of unfortunate we don't have that now. That would be good for us to look at, but anyway, okay. Moving on to Board Member Anderson. Do you have any questions, please?
Hi. Yeah, I missed the concept review, but looks like an amazing project.
Thank you.
Very exciting. And I just missed your reflective roof that you were talking about, so.
Well, the Title 24 wants you to have a certain reflectivity of the roof. And
Yes.
the fact is that there's no houses looking down on top of this to where they, if you had a lighter colored roof, that it would be glaring or anything. So that's why we're happy with that fact that we're at the high point.
So what is your material for
Well, it'd be
the
a
roof?
single ply roof.
Single ply roof, so you're gonna be a white, or you're gonna
It's
go
like
gravel?
like a light off white or a light gray.
Okay,
It's
light
pretty much-
gray would,
It's pretty much
yeah,
required by Title 24.
would be nice. Okay.
The exception to that would be this lower roof, which the family room looks out onto, and that will have a gravel ballast on it. That's a warm kind of Santa Barbara stone gravel ballast.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Board Member Arkalian, do you have any questions, please?
No questions.
Board Member Klein, do you have any questions, please?
Just one question. What's the permeable paver spec? Did you guys?
Yeah. We're actually,
Sorry, we have to go to the civil, I'll repeat that just for the record. We'll have to go to the civil plan, we'll get there. And definitely has been reviewed by the Creeks Division for sure, but pretty sure the spec is on one of the C sheets.
if you leave it where it is right now, that back patio, we're actually picking up all the drainage from the patios in those slots that have gravel in them that you see depicted here in this rendering. And then they will be piped from there to alongside of the sport court. There's actually the stepping planters. Everything goes in there and gets cleaned before it goes out to the dissipator that Steve pointed out. So those back patios are not actually permeable. The driveway is a gravel driveway that is permeable, and then the long driveway going down is, if you can find the right plan here, is permeable, and it will have, the grade will be stepped underneath of that sloping driveway so that it does tend to percolate down as opposed to running off. So it's a concrete paver with, spaces between it. I don't know.
Yeah, I think there's only so many you can choose from.
Like I said, it's been approved by Creeks already to get
Yeah, I
the
was
coastal
just-
development permit.
Which one was it, Scott?
I see it. Yeah, to the bottom. Ackerstone. Okay, thank you.
Ackerstone, there you go.
Yeah.
Okay, I was just going to make a quick question about the plate heights haven't changed at all, right? They're the original plate heights that you, and
exactly the same.
that new deck is, we have this recommendation that it be 15 feet away from the property lines, but it looks like it's well beyond
Over like-
15 feet.
yeah.
Yeah, okay.
We can show it to you on the
I kind of
roof
saw
plan.
in your.
It's on the
3D
second,
rendering.
it shows on the second floor plan. It's really kind of centered in the middle of the site. It's just over the kitchen.
Okay.
But might as well show it to you so you can, just, come on.
Come on. It's getting there.
There it
So
is right
it's
there.
Right in the heart of the,
Oh, got it, okay.
it's right here. It's almost dead center in the site.
In the whole lot, in the lot, almost centered in the lot.
Okay, well, that answers my question. Great. Okay, we'll move on to comments. Vice Chair Kolas, do you have a comment?
I have no comments beyond those that we gave them in the last review. I think it's a great project.
Okay, Board Member Anderson, do you have any comments, please?
Chair Miller, sorry to interrupt. Just to confirm, Ms. Anderson reviewed the previous materials in order to comment and vote.
Oh, no, I was going to abstain because I did not.
Thank you.
Okay, all right, so moving on to Board Member Arkelian. Any comments, please?
I believe the project is ready for PDA and final. I believe quality architectural materials are used, colors, and the proposed deck. I feel like it's very well integrated with the rest of the structure. Appreciate the level of detail. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Board Member Klein, do you have any comments, please?
I agree. I think you follow our guidelines very well, and it's ready for PDA and final.
All right, my comments, I kind of echo what everyone's saying. Would someone like to entertain a motion, please? Like I said, they're here for final design. Final PDA.
I'll make a motion for final, or for project design approval and final with the following neighborhood preservation findings: that the project is consistent in appearance with the scenic character of the neighborhood as far as site planning and how the architecture has been developed. It's compatible in size, bulk, and scale. Quality architectural materials are being used. No significant trees are being removed. There's additional trees that are being mitigated for any removals, and additional trees are being added. The public health, safety, and welfare are appropriately protected. The good neighbor guidelines regarding privacy, landscaping, noise, and lighting are being followed with downlighting and subdued path lighting. No public views are being impacted. The project also follows the hillside design and slope lot findings, fitting within the natural topography of the site, as well as the building scale and form that blends within the hillside, minimizing visual appearance of any structures. As well as the grading findings have been met. The proposed grading will not significantly increase siltation in or decrease the water quality of streams, etc. The proposed grading will not cause a substantial loss of southern oak woodland habitat either.
Okay, may I have a roll call, please?
I'll second that.
Oh, may I have a second? Thank you. Appreciate your method. Yeah, really. All right, can I insert a quick question regarding the grading findings? For us to make this finding, there are appropriate details on the plans, right? So we should have reviewed those. I apologize. So can we just quickly review those details, just so we can back what we're saying in our motion?
No problem. So as had been mentioned before, all of the roof water and all the water that lands on the hard surfaces is all being piped to the stepped planters that are running along the east side of the sport court there. So those are like stepped planters that will be doing the cleaning. And the entire gravel driveway is permeable. The driveway coming up is fully permeable. So if in a larger rain event, any overflow from those planters would be piped down to that long linear, it's like a dissipator, so that it turns it in from a concentrated pipe into a dissipator that's, that's 100 feet long or whatever, so it trickles out and turns it back into sheet flow as it goes down the hillside. So that was, fully once again worked out by the civil engineers. And we're also, no drainage whatsoever is going over the bluff. Everything is going north towards the, towards the street. So we're not imposing any additional water from any of the site down the bluff, only what lands on the bluff now. Everything else is going back the other way.
Got it. You're on tier 3, right? Is that?
Yeah, I believe it's tier 3, yeah.
All right, thank you. I appreciate that. Can I have a roll call, please?
Here we go. Chair Miller,
Yes.
Vice Chair Claus,
Yes.
Board Member Killian,
Yes.
Board Member Klein,
Yes.
and Board Member Anderson.
Yes.
Or pardon my interruption, if, I think you'll have to abstain from this particular one, just because you didn't review all the materials. So for
Okay,
the vote, you
abstain.
could ask questions, you're able to ask questions as you did.
Yes.
But unfortunately, you weren't able to participate in the discussion, or you should abstain from the vote, just given that you haven't
Thank you
reviewed the
for the
plans.
yes anyway.
Sorry about that. We want you to be able, you're getting closer with all the others, so it won't be an issue.
Board Member Anderson? Abstain.
Abstain.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yourself a project. You're welcome.
Chair Miller, could you announce a 10-day appeal?
Oh, yeah, and
period
there's a
again?
10-day appeal period for this project. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, let's move on to item 2. scheduled for 3:45, but we do have a 15-minute window, so we can go ahead and start with this one. It's 1220 Flora Vista Drive. We have, oh, great. This is a new item for concept review. Proposal to construct a one-story, 692 square foot special accessory dwelling unit located in the Hillside Design District and associated with an existing two-story, 1,818 square foot single unit residence with a 451 square foot garage. Staff hearing officer review and approval is requested for front and interior setback encroachment. The proposed total of 2,961 square feet on a 15,057 square foot lot is 68% of the maximum guideline floor to lot area ratio. No final appealable decision will take place at this hearing. Neighborhood preservation findings and hillside design and slope lot will be required when the project is reviewed for final design approval. Hi. Welcome and good luck. And if you'd like to introduce
Thank
yourselves,
you.
that'd be great.
I'm Stephanie Poole. I'm the architect. I'm here with Tony and David McClintock,
Welcome.
and they are the owners.
Okay.
We are here because the owners wish to create an ADU on their lot, and their lot is an unusual shape, and we have an unusual location proposed in the sort of the side and front yard.
And before you go on, may I ask a quick question? Why was it triggered for SFDB?
Okay, yeah.
I'm kind of curious.
I was getting to that, but go ahead.
Oh, okay.
We'll let the staff handle
What
it.
our parameters are.
Yeah.
Hi, thank you for the question. It looks like this is a special ADU. We also have the case planner here, but it's proposed to be two-story, and sorry. It looks like the project needs staff hearing officer review and approval for a setback encroachment, and for whatever reasons, I'm not privy to exactly all the details of the project, but it may not have
We
met.
can ask
Big
Ms.
staff
Brodesson
person
come up.
edging to
So
come up and talk.
we have a case planner here who can describe what the design review trigger was for the ADU.
Good afternoon, Chair Miller. One of the triggers for design review for accessory dwelling units is if it's less than 20 feet from the front property line. So because of this odd-shaped lot and the easements in the back of the lot, which Ms. Poole will get to, it triggers design review.
Okay. So full on design review.
Just
like a-
design review,
like
yeah.
a regular
Normally
project.
ADUs
Right,
don't
I know,
require design
exempt.
review, but there's this list of triggers that kicks it in.
Kicks it in.
No, I thought it was just a advisory or a comments to the staff hearing officer, basically.
Correct. Chair Miller, today we'll just be giving comments regarding the design of the ADU, and then subsequent to today's hearing, we'll take it forward to to staff hearing officer for review of the requested modifications, and then subsequent to that, it will return to design review for potentially PDA and final approvals.
Okay. So it's pretty much the same as if it was a regular project, but am I correct? I'm sorry to interject, but I thought it was kind of important we find out what.
So, so if I may, and as Ms. Brodesson mentioned, there are kind of two components to this. So we have ministerial design criteria for accessory dwelling units.
Right.
And if you aren't able to meet those ministerial design criteria, then that means it triggers design review. So for a single-family project, it would come to this board. But this project also has, so that's what Ms. Brodesson was referencing in terms of being located within the 20 feet of the front lot line. But the second thing is, because of the modification requests, we have a provision in our ordinance that requires a design review board to comment on the aesthetic appropriateness of the modification being requested.
Compatibility.
I'm sorry.
Compatibility.
And again, appearance, you're not making the land use approval, that's the staff hearing officer's role. And so this is concept review, and then, like Ms. Brodesson said, it will come back after this project goes to the staff hearing officer for project design approval and final approval.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Appreciate the indulgence. If you'd like to show your project, that'd be great.
Okay. Again, this is up at 1220 Flora Vista. It's the very top of Flora Vista as it turns into Calle Canyon, going down to Upper West Valerio Street. I'm sure you guys are all familiar with it. It's right beside Escondido Park. And there's a city reservoir, as you can see up here in the top right-hand corner of the screen, that is not being used as a reservoir currently. But it's fenced off, the property's fenced off, the city property is fenced off, and from the park as well. The reason we're here is because this unusual shaped lot, triangular shape, as you can see, we have proposed an ADU, a single-story ADU, to the side and towards the front of the lot. If you can see this blue rectangle that I'm have my cursor on, this is a potential location for the ADU that would work and that would not trigger us to come before this board. However, the lot is constrained by 3 public utility easements. And one is along this northern property line here. There's another one in the front, which is a water easement, and there's one in the back, an overhead utility easement in the backyard. So we have studied alternate locations for this ADU, and the owners felt that this was the best location. The other location would be in the backyard. As you can see, there's another blue box back here that could potentially be a location. However, every window in the house looks out onto this backyard, 1. And 2, as you can see, this is oriented towards the neighbor's backyard and their most private parts of their house. There is a slight rise to the backyard. You can see the topography going up, which would also increase costs, increase exposure, and lack of privacy for the next door neighbor's backyard. So we really felt like this was the best location for this, especially seeing as how there are no neighbors to the north. It's a fenced off city lot and a public park. We feel like we can successfully kind of what is my word that I'm looking for? Shield the look of the ADU and the entrance, and separate these living spaces from public view, and create. Yes, yes. As I move through the photographs, here's some other photos of the neighborhood. This is right across the street. These are some houses that are directly across the street from the site. This is Calle Montillo as you go diagonally across the street. And then some other houses along Flora Vista that have successfully planted up their front yards to kind of shield their homes from Flora Vista and from view. This is a photograph of what we are proposing. It's a prefab ADU, which we feel like is a very affordable solution and easy. And the fact that there are power lines nearby, we wanted to go with 1 story. And this is a very affordable way to get the homeowners their ADU quickly without disturbing the neighbors and everyone around them. They'll just build the slab and then bring the ADU to the site without a lot of neighborhood disruption. Here is a photograph of the existing house, 1970s. There's some lap siding on the front, and the rest of the house is in stucco. As you can see here, there's the windows I was referring to in the back, all looking to the backyard. This is the elevation to the north that will be looking out onto the ADU. Very few windows. These are bathrooms, and this is a stair. this is a planting plan. And I have some images of the proposed plants that we plan to use. It's basically all drought tolerant, a lot of natives, trying to pick up on the oak woodland kind of feel of the Escondido Park and the city reservoir lot, which has a lot of oaks and mature trees. The trees that we have proposed are olives, manzanita, and I think that is a red bud. I call it the coastal grandmother of landscapes. The only thing unusual about the landscape is trying to create a special entry feel through a natural arbor, well, not a natural arbor, the circular arbor covered with roses, a climbing rose. And that would be right here, coming right off the sidewalk and the street parking, where there's always plenty of parking. No parking is planned for this ADU. The ground cover will be gravel, will be Diamondia, and just planting. Let's see, I'm going to go back to, here are photographs of the site. As you can see, there's the one that will be, the area of the ADU will be facing. This is that woodland looking up to Escondido Park. This will be the area of the ADU. It's barren and open and easy to access for building the ADU. But obviously, you know, we're planting lushly along this front area, along the street, and be able to create a private outdoor space for both the inhabitants of the ADU as well as the main house. Let's see, compatibility-wise, we feel like the materials that we selected, the lap siding, kind of somewhat mimic the lap siding on this lap siding, mimics the lap siding over the garage, and like there. And this shed roof that we're proposing, the single shed roof sloping backwards towards the city lot, will not be really seen by anyone, and it's similar in shape to the existing roof. And for those reasons, we felt this was one of the most compatible prefab ADUs that we had found.
Okay, here we go. Is there anyone on Zoom who is in the viewing audience who'd like to speak on this item 1220 Flora Vista Drive? Please raise your hand. That's the raised hand icon at the bottom of your screen. Okay, is there anyone in the room who'd like to speak on this item? Please raise your hand, and you can fill out a speaker slip after you've spoken. Not seeing any raised hands or any raised hands on Zoom.
Okay.
Public comment is closed on this item. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I'll bring it back to the board for questions. Vice Chair Colas, do you have questions, please?
I do. My first question is for staff. I just want to be very clear. So our purview is simply to comment on the aesthetic compatibility of this, and that's it. Is that correct?
And I can have Ms. Broadison jump in, but yeah, so one thing, this is triggering design review, aside from the modifications requested, because it's in the front yard, it's within 20 feet. So you'll be able to comment simply on the location and the neighborhood compatibility and just how that fits, what the design is, how it fits in. but you will also be giving the staff hearing officer comments on the aesthetic appropriateness of the two modifications required. This is an oddly shaped lot, so it triggers both a front setback modification as well as an interior setback modification. So you'll want to comment of, again, just give guidance to the staff hearing officer about what you think design-wise and the siting of this particular structure, and basic, just how, whether you're not approving the land use decision, but you're just giving guidance on the location and whether it's appropriate. And I'm gonna have Ms. Broadison.
Chair Miller and board members, I just want to also add that if they were to remove the ADU and put it behind the house, it would eliminate any qualifying open yard area for the lot. So that's another reason why they decided to put it towards the side.
So can I get clarification on what the interior yard setback modification is that's being requested? I thought it was only a front yard setback mod.
I did too. I did too. Yeah. It's only for the front.
Because it used to be 20 feet when the house was built, and then they rezoned it to 30. So we're going to be no closer to the street than any other house in the neighborhood.
Or the existing house.
Or the existing house.
Okay.
So I kind of felt like that was compatible.
If you,
Okay.
just
Front
to,
and, oh, I see, it says front and interior setback.
That's the only reason why I said it. So if Ms. Broadison has information that's updated, just in terms of maybe you could point out on the site plan where it encroaches into the setback, that will be helpful for the board to comment.
okay, so this is the setback
is only
for the zone. The house was, when it was built, this was the setback, which was 20. So we are no closer at this point right here on the ADU than the existing house is to the road. So this shaded area is what is in the setback.
I guess what I'm trying to say, Colossus question, you say interior and front setback, but it's only
It's
front.
really only front,
Okay,
yeah.
got it.
Triangle, there's no side on that side.
The,
Back line, or is it the side line?
this is the northern property line. This is 4 feet in from that, which ADUs are allowed to be from an interior setback. So if we were to be able to be, you know, if the PUE, the public utility easement, weren't hindering us from doing that, we could place the ADU in this location.
Understood.
Okay.
So Chair Miller, through you to Vice Chair Colossus and to the audience, just for clarification, there's a misrepresentation on the agenda. So it calls out both, but just for the record, you only need to comment on the aesthetic appropriateness of the front setback. Thank you for sharing.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so on to my questions for you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so just for the record, can you identify for us, and I could make a guess, but I'll ask the question, the line that represents the extent of the public utility easement?
Yes. I will zoom in on this. So the public utility easement is shown in this dashed line, and it is 16 feet. Well, it's the ADU is 16 feet from the property line. And this PUE is about 12 feet. It's 12 feet in width, and then there's a little bit more space in from the property line, as you can see.
Okay, so the the public utility easement is 12 feet wide, but it
Yeah.
basically starts 4 feet back from
Yeah.
the lot line.
Correct.
Okay, so I'm going to call it the northerly wall of your proposed ADU is
Yes.
effectively sitting on that easement line.
Yes.
Okay, that was my first question. What is the proposed roof material of the ADU?
It is a Galvalume metal roof. It's corrugated metal.
And what is the roofing on the existing home?
Believe it or not, it is still the original shake shingles, which I can't imagine that they're going to last too much longer, and they'll probably be switching out, but they would probably do an asphalt shingle.
Okay.
I think it is.
Can you just walk us through what windows would be facing the park on the north? I'm just trying to get an understanding
on
of
the
that
north
private
elevation?
public interplay.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
These small windows are high, and would be located in the bathroom. And then this French door is off of the kitchen.
Okay. And can I ask you, I know you said that you selected this because it was a cost-effective prefab. Was there any option to have a gabled roof as opposed to just a shed roof? It appears to me that the existing home is more of a gabled condition, which is why I'm asking.
The shed roof is the only option, I believe, but I felt like the existing house does have that kind of shape here. This is a shed roof pretty much all along this front edge.
Okay.
And that's really what is visible, the most visible to the public.
So could you just, to be really clear, can you show us a picture of the front elevation of the existing home? And then show us what is, I guess it would be the westerly facade of the ADU, so we can get a sense of what these will look like next to each other, please?
Okay, so this elevation and this elevation is the one that's facing the ADU. Okay. So this elevation will be facing
The home,
the home.
okay.
They're high windows, let-in light. These face south. The French doors and some windows into each bedroom.
Okay, so the side elevation that's on the lower right-hand portion of the screen right now, that's what would be facing the street, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. If the ADU were to be placed in the rear yard, and I know that's not what's being proposed, but there's justifications that we're required to kind of make here. So if it were to be placed in the backyard, to what extent would it reduce the open yard requirement? Or the open yard space
I
that
will
would
show you in this,
remain
the
roughly?
required open yard is this represented by this red rectangle with the X. This blue rectangle would be the ADU. I imagine that if we were to flip that red rectangle, we might be able to get that 1,250 square feet, and it would probably encroach in the PUE, but it's probably doable. But I don't know if that meets the minimum distance for the 20 feet.
Yeah. Okay. Those are my only questions. Thank you.
All right, Board Member Anderson, do you have any questions, please?
Yeah, so the slope of the existing house roof and the ADU, what is the existing house roof slope and the ADU slope proposed?
I think it's approximately 3 and 12 to 4 and 12. It's very low slope.
Okay, so the existing house is 4 and 12, and the ADU is proposed at 3?
Let's see, it's actually 1.5 to 12.
Because well, I'm just looking at the picture. The picture looks more significant than 1 and 5, but yeah, okay. But you're proposing a lower slope.
I think that's a perspective exaggeration. Like if you're mentioning this, you think that from this photograph, I think it's just optical illusion. It's 1 and 12.
And the existing house, do you believe, is a 4 and 12? Okay,
I
got it.
believe.
And the windows of the existing house are what type of material? And the windows proposed on the ADU, what type of material?
Aluminum on the proposed prefab. I believe that the owners had replaced the windows on the main house with vinyl or fiberglass type of windows. As you can see in this front elevation, it has a kind of a low horizontal window similar to the one on the ADU as well.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, Board Member Arkelian, do you have any questions, please?
I do, similar to the questions from the other board members. Yeah, I'm trying to better understand the connection between the main house and the ADU. What would you say, trying to get a better taste, like what would you say are the main elements from the main house that inspired you to choose this style of this ADU?
The choice of the lap siding to mimic this lap siding, there are other kind of flat panel options. It's more modern look for this prefab. We felt like the lap siding was a little more traditional and mimicked the lap siding on the front of the garage, which is closest to the street, and the shed roof style of that front elevation. Felt like that was a strong roof form at the front of the house.
That's all I have, thanks.
All right, Board Member Klein, do you have any questions, please?
No questions.
So, I guess my question is, the siding of your ADU is not the same as the siding of the existing house, but it's matching it?
It's pretty close in dimension to the lap siding of the
Well, what
of
is
the
the
garage.
material that's the lap siding on the garage, and what is the material of the lap siding on the ADU?
It'll be a fiber cement siding on the proposed ADU, and this is wood siding.
So
It's
on the-
painted wood.
I noticed on the fire sided on the ADU, there was metal strips between the siding as opposed to just,
That's on the corners. I can,
you have a picture?
yeah. It's going the wrong way. It's basically here.
But I see
And it's-
reflection in the seams between the siding, so it's not really siding, it's
Uh,
just strips of,
Actually,
With
that
the
is, no. It will be lap. It will be lap. This is a similar, but not exactly. Like, it will be lap siding, but will not have strips in between.
so okay.
It will be a traditional lap.
And you're wanting to match that fascia, that thick fascia?
Yes.
Which is metal?
Yeah, that is because of insulation requirements.
Right.
Slop vaulted ceiling inside.
But the fascia on the house is wood, right?
Yes.
Okay. And the window frames that's some kind of nice clean metal look? And
Yes.
Whereas the house is vinyl?
Yes.
Okay. Were you thinking of putting solar panels on the roof? So you're required to put solar panels on the roof?
Yes.
So you are going to put solar panels on the roof?
Of this?
Yes, of the ADU.
I'm not sure what the requirement is, if it's better to put it on the main house.
Well, I was just wondering if that was one of the mitigating factors why you chose the shed roof?
No, because it will be facing north anyway.
Ah, got it. Okay.
The surface of the roof isn't visible anywhere that's publicly accessible.
And if I could just ask the applicant to speak into the microphone, or
Yeah.
otherwise no one can hear.
And it's, yeah, turn it on.
Right, there you go. Press the, there you go.
And you were saying it wasn't visible?
It's,
So,
oh, yeah, so that roof faces not the Escondido Park, it actually faces the reservoir, because
is
the
all private
Escondido Park
property.
doesn't start until well beyond the end of the unit.
Okay.
So it's facing,
It's-
inaccessible property, it's not.
But it's
covered.
not ideal for solar, in other words.
got it, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Those are my only questions, so I'll bring it back for comments.
Excuse me,
Vice-
Chair Miller.
Yes.
We actually do have someone attending on Zoom who would
Oh.
like to provide public
Sure.
comment if you're open to
course,
opening it.
yes.
Okay.
Okay, I have, the applicant has stated that Susan Rue be allowed to speak. Please go ahead and unmute your mic if you'd like to speak.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
This is Susan from the customer experience team here at Studio Shed in Colorado. I'm here with my lead design coordinator. We're happy to answer any questions you might have. We did want to provide a point of clarification on the windows. For the studio, the windows being furnished are Marvin Essential Series. They're fiberglass windows.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, with that being said, I will move it to the board for comments. Vice Chair Claus, do you have any comments, please?
Okay, so I'll start with, I can appreciate the irregularity of the lot and the parameters that you're dealing with in terms of easements and setbacks that are different now than they used to be. And this is one of the reasons I was asking for clarification on purview, so if you need to, put me back in my place, feel free to do that, Ms. Kokinda. But I have concerns about the relationship between this unit, the house, and the street. Typically, we see ADUs in a side yard or in a backyard, and all of a sudden, this is kind of in a very prominent position on the street. So I'm just kind of talking through this because I'm actually really torn. This is kind of at the end of the line, so in a sense, it is unique in that way. You're not in the middle of the block where you're flanked by two homes that are very consistent with yours. You're kind of up at the top. This would be at the very top, kind of out on its own. So there might be some opportunity there to look at this more uniquely than I might look at some other projects. I'm concerned that we're looking at a project that I think is partly being proposed by logistical, or being driven by ease of logistics, as opposed to site planning and a location on the site that I think could be successful at the rear of the lot. I understand the desire to screen this with landscape from the street and kind of make it go away, and yet it's in a prominent position, and there's sort of this arcaded rose pathway that's, so I feel like there's some conflicts there, like we're kind of trying to announce it, but we're trying to kind of hide it too. So I'm struggling with those items from a big picture standpoint. And then there are some inconsistencies, I would say, architecturally between the main residence and the proposed unit. And I think the questions probably give you a sense of where we're at with that as a board maybe, or I don't want to speak for anybody else, but those would be roofing material, fascia materials, and for me, the roof line. You have a very strong shed element that you see from, it's Flora Vista, not Calle Cannon here, right?
Mm-hmm.
I actually used to rent a place across the street. I have fond memories of Escondido Park with my little boy. But the manner in which the roof is oriented on the ADU, it doesn't really sort of speak to that or create continuity between the house and the unit. So there's a discrepancy there in my mind in terms of roof lines and how those are being treated, as well as the slope, which Ms. Anderson asked about. So those are my comments.
Okay, Board Member Anderson, do you have any comments, please?
Yes, I do. Thank you for your submittal. I mean, ADUs are really changing the fabric, right, of our neighborhoods. And it's, in my opinion, super important that they're design-wise compatible with the existing residents. And or enhancing, you know, the design style. Because a lot of times ADUs in my neighborhood on the Mesa, you know, garage conversions are left with a completely different design style than the main residence for years on end. So I'm going up another track, but I appreciate the encroachment. I have the same situation in my neighborhood and would be definitely positive for the 20-foot, but in this case, I feel like the ADU should be pulled back so that the main residence still is the dominant feature on the site. So I wouldn't be a proponent of allowing the encroachment. I would rather see the ADU pushed further back. Does that mean reducing size of the ADU? Does that mean, you know, other alternatives? There's lots of other alternatives for the placement of the ADU. I think design-wise, it doesn't feel like it fits with the main house design right now. The roof materials, the materials of, you know, the windows and doors, what else? Yeah, it just design-wise isn't matching the main house. Rafter tails exposed. The house is a gable roof with a continued shed across the front. What else? And it, you know, it's close to the house. It's 6 feet. So they really are going to read together. It would be great to see maybe some perspectives or renderings of what they look like together. So those are my comments. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Board Member Arkelian, do you have any comments, please?
I do. I'm, based on what is requested by the staff hearing officer, I would be in support of having the ADU encroach into the front setback. However, you know, I'm on page 7 of the PDF, sheet A6.
Oops.
You know, this is a challenging layout of the site of the parcel, and I appreciate the applicant coming here with many different options and exploring. It looks like you put a lot of time into where would be best. But yeah, I would be fine with where you're proposing. But based on the sheet here, similar to, you know, the other board members, I feel like there needs to be more of a connection between this style and the style of the ADU, the architectural elements, the fenestrations that I'm seeing here versus what's on the ADU. I understand that maybe prefabrication has its limits, but I feel like in order for me to go and accept that front yard setback, the front setback encroachment, there needs to be much more features that are connecting with each other so that they speak the same. And I would be in support with Board Member Anderson, showing renderings between from the street that show both the house and the ADU together. That would be helpful for me and for the next round. So yeah, studying elements, materials, and restudying the roof of the ADU to make it more compatible with the main house would be appreciated. Thank you.
All right, Board Member Klein, do you have any comments, please?
Yes, in regards to the landscape, I think it's a definite improvement to the space and conserving water. I am familiar with the Studio Shed product, and I do think it's a high quality product, and I think that for the reasons you've made, it is compatible with the constraints of it being prefab, and it is an affordable option to increase housing. In regards to the modification, I am in support of it aesthetically. For all the reasons you pointed out, I think it makes the most sense with the site topography, with neighborhood privacy, and also keeping usable open space on the lot. And I just want to also mention that previously 20 feet was the setback, so you would have been in compliance and we wouldn't have to be here.
I gotta
Yep.
make my 2 cents here. Ugh. Yeah, where you're putting it is makes perfect sense. But yeah, I'm struggling with matching the existing house. And I know it's a prefab project, and as Board Member Klein says, it's a good product, good quality product. But as far as it matching the existing home, it doesn't. So, where do we go from here? This is one of those weird things where if you had it located somewhere else, we wouldn't even be here for review. But you are here because you are into the setback, so it does kick us in for design review. I think Board Member Anderson made some extremely valid points in terms of how it should look matching the existing home. I don't know what products are available with this particular company in terms of making it more of a gable roof as opposed to a shed roof, so it would match closely to much closer to the house. It would be nice to see that the actual siding of this ADU does actually match the house. But what you're saying probably would be okay. I mean, you're saying it's an actual lap siding. It's not what you're showing in the photograph.
Yeah.
It would help the board if we actually saw that, so we don't try to guess what it's going to look like. It would be nice if the window configurations matched or were inspired by the house. I'm not saying the style of the house of the big house is wonderful, but that the two should match as best you can.
Susan's still online, because she could maybe show you the picture of the siding.
And pardon my interruption, that's not, for applicants, you're supposed to be here in person, and I just want to say that's setting a precedent that
Okay.
I'm,
I think those are my only comments, which are basically, I'm just struggling with the compatibility of the style of the home with the existing home. So, with that said, you're here for comments only, and you're asking for,
So if Mr. Chair, and to the rest of the board, it might be helpful for, from a comment standpoint, because what I've heard is different things that maybe you could talk about the siting or the location of the structure in and of itself and the appropriateness, and then have comments about the design. And you don't have to have a consensus amongst you all in your comments. You can just say, some of the board think this, some.
so we could make a straw vote about the location, and then then on top of that, we can say if we're okay with the location, but then we have to follow that up with the design needs to be something.
That might be one way to address kind of not trying to put it all together, but that might help the staff hearing officer make, get input from you about just the siting. And then again, this project will come back to the single family design board to get approval for the design of it and all the details.
So I guess before we make a motion, I should get a straw vote. How many support its location with the setback?
So can I just ask a question? Because it seems to me like those two issues are so interrelated from what I'm hearing that it's hard to pick them apart. I might be more willing, and I'm speaking for myself only, to support the front yard modification if what was before me was more compatible with the main residence. But it's not, so I'm inclined to say no.
Perhaps with that comment, you could see how the other if the other board members agree with that statement, and then that will help drive the conversation or the type of comments, and if that makes sense. Because there's no motion that has to be made today or any kind of appealable decision.
Okay.
Okay, so I guess I'm asking for a straw vote based on what Board Member Vice Chair Collas said. How many would support what she has just said as a yes? Is that correct? I would say yes, so I guess that's how it's got to be.
And then if I could ask the secretary to do a roll call of that straw
course.
vote, so we have that in the
Okay.
record, and for people who, it's hard to see hands going up.
Sure.
Okay, here we go. Chair Miller,
Yes.
Vice Chair Collas.
Yes.
Okay, Board Member Killian,
Yes.
Board Member Klein,
No.
and Board Member Anderson.
Yes.
Vote is 4-1.
And then if Board Member Klein could just, again, reiterate.
Yeah, just what I've said previously on the record. I think it's a high quality product, and the site planning makes sense for the modification.
Okay, so now we just need to make a motion with comments, is that correct? Who would like to be brave enough to make a
And
motion?
ultimately, you would be, either you want to see this again, or you could continue it to the staff hearing officer with the comments.
Okay, I'll make a motion that the project be continued indefinitely and returned to the full board for review prior to going to the staff hearing officer, with the following comments. The consensus among the board is that that the encroachment into the front yard setback can be supported due to, if the ADU were to be brought into stylistic compatibility with the main residence, primarily because of the historical, I don't know if you want us to address this or not, Ellen, because of the historical front yard setback as well as the constraints on the lot. Specific comments that we would like to request that the applicant revisit are the nature of the roof lines, the interest that the siding is a type that matches the main residence, whether it be wood or plaster, that the windows are consistent, but they don't necessarily have to match the nature of the windows and doors on the main residence. I feel like there's more that I'm missing. That the roofing material be consistent with the main residence. I think that's it. If there's anything I've missed, feel free to chime in. It's my motion.
All right, thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All right, any discussion? Hearing none, may I have a roll call, please?
Okay, we're continuing to the full board. Indefinitely before going to staff hearing officer. Chair Miller,
Yes?
Vice Chair Collas,
Yes.
Board Member Anderson,
Yes.
Board Member Killian,
Yes.
and Board Member Klein.
No.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Okay.
Pardon me?
You presented us with a challenge.
I'm going to give a 5-minute recess. Let's return at 4:30. Thank you very much. Design Board. We're on to item number 3. This is a new item for concept review. 817 Spring Street. Proposal to demolish an existing 187 square foot detached garage associated with an existing one-story 790 square foot single-family unit residence and construct a detached accessory dwelling unit comprised of a 1,000 square foot accessory dwelling unit and a 300 square foot workshop. Project also involves removal of landscape walls, regrade the rear yard, and new landscaping and hardscaping. The proposed total of 2,090 square feet of development on a 5,041 square foot lot is 85% of the maximum required floor-to-lot area ratio. No final appealable decision will take place at this hearing. Neighborhood preservation findings will be required when the project is reviewed for project design approval. Welcome. If you'd like to introduce yourselves and show us your project.
Chair Miller, if I could just provide a brief staff comment on this project.
Sure.
I just want to point out that although the project description does say that it's a required floor-to-lot area ratio, this parcel is zoned R2, so therefore the FAR is just guiding. It's not technically a required.
Can you educate us? What do you mean by R2 zoning? What is that?
Residential two-unit residential. Sorry, putting me on the spot here.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, carry on.
Hi, thank you, Chair and Commissioners. We appreciate this extra hearing to get us on the schedule to look at this project. I've got the two owners and clients here. I'll let them introduce themselves. I'm Ken Vermillion with Buildston Architecture and Planning.
Thank you. Oh, hi,
George
sis.
Schreiber.
And I'm Lori Lariva. Oh, am I on?
Turn on. There you go.
we go. And I'm Lori Lariva.
All right, thank you. All right, go ahead.
And so what we did, we've provided a couple photos of the neighborhood. These are going to be 2- and 3-story buildings within 1 block walking distance of this property. And so we'll just kind of cycle through these quickly and show you there's quite a diverse set of styles and certainly a number of properties that have 2-story development on them currently. We can come back to these if there are any questions later. So our project is about mid-block, the 800 block of Spring Street. It's backed up against the commercial zone of Milpas Street. So our back property line is adjacent to commercial zoning. And as noted, their zoning and for this property is R2, it's not single family. So let me just get to the stuff. All right, so let's talk about the existing house, 790 square feet, single story. Here is the site, and you can see the blue lap siding, the white trim. There's been a few additions onto the rear that you can tell, some shed roofs added to the original roof structure. And the intent is that this structure will become the client's father's residence, with the clients moving into the somewhat larger rear ADU unit. Let's see, you can see the existing single-car garage in the back, and you can see a retaining wall with a raised grade. So behind that fence there on the right photo in the middle is the commercial properties along Milpas. And we're actually regrading the rear yard to lower the site so as to minimize any height impacts and to create a better situation. Right now the whole site flows into the existing house, which is not anything anybody's crazy about either. So we're going to do some grading there and drop the grade and then place the new ADU in the back. These are our street frontage. One on the side of the existing residence here. We'll highlight this photo here, which is a 3-story building, a couple doors down from the subject property. And then this would be the other side across the street. And so, site plan layout, the driveway doesn't change, curb cut doesn't change. The existing residence number 1, as you can see, remains as is. We've got 2 volumes that touch the ground here. One would be the new workshop, which is an allowed accessory structure. We do not need to have a covered parking. We can have the one single uncovered parking space remain in the driveway next to the existing house. So this workshop becomes a woodworking shop for the client. And then the bar number 4, the dark gray element, is the actual master suite to the ADU itself. So you would go in through the breezeway, the number 7, enter into the lower level, and have a bedroom down on the lower level, and then you go upstairs to the remainder. We have solar height considerations along the side property line that's north. That would be the property line along the top of this drawing, and we're just showing how we've calculated that, and we meet the solar height as it may or may not impact the neighbor to the north. So here's the ground level plan on the left, one big open workshop. And then you can see a sliding glass door that enters into the lower level of the ADU. Full bedroom, full bath, and then the stair winds up to the upper level. Land on a landing here. There'll be a couple of small bedrooms above the master, and then one large great room, living, dining, kitchen area that would flow out onto a pretty large exterior deck where they can do family meals and outdoor dining. And the deck and most of the windows face the mountain view of the lower Riviera, which we think are really nice. Stick with the arrows. And so the roof plan it's a series of flat roofs. And we will just make a comment by saying we are 20 feet from the existing residence. The only reason we're before this board is because we are in excess of the 16-foot height for an ADU. And the main rationales for that is they just wanted a 2-story space. The workshop, of course, takes up the biggest part of the lower ground level, but so that's really what we're here, just to make sure that you guys are okay with the design and style and layout, given that the only thing that we're asking for is an acceptance of the height limit. So elevation-wise, you can see the solar height line, that we meet that on the lower level. The great room has a vaulted ceiling for a little more volume and space. You can see the workshop below, and so our maxing out height of the parapet is our 24.6, and so that's 5.5 feet below what we're allowed to do, the 30-foot height limit. And you can see what we've done. We've got a couple materials, stucco being the main material, and then some horizontal lap siding of some type that would allude to the existing house, but be a slight, variation of that. Colors and tones are to be determined. Again, this is our first look at what the building will look like and what materials we might use. Windows and doors are going to be aluminum clad wood, so we get the energy efficiency that's needed. That would be, of course, a departure from the front house, but front house's age certainly dictates a change in those elements. The main balcony space facing the mountains is shielded from the neighbor next door with a screen wall that meets the requirements for anything that's closer to the property line than 15 feet. And so we feel like we've protected the neighbors adequately. And then this is the street view. So this is the measurement of the existing house in the foreground and what the ADU would be behind it. Again, the total height of the tallest part of the ADU is 24 foot 6 feet. You can see there is still a slight raised floor foundation for the back building, but we did drop that plinth back there, so we kind of split the difference. It would be much higher if we left the grading the way it is, but we've dropped it. We feel to a really comfortable space and, again, fit within the solar height ordinance along the north side property line. We've got our quick 3D study model. We've brought in a 3D printed piece that you can pick up and pass around if you like. And so we feel like the smaller footprint that touches the ground makes it appear a bit lighter. We anticipate this is the new living quarters for the clients and their soon-to-be growing family. So we thank you.
All right. Thank you. Did we get any public comment, please?
Okay, I'd like to open public comment for this particular item on Zoom. Please raise your hand. It's the small icon at the bottom of the screen. In the meantime, I did get a speaker slip from Christine Newhauser. If she'd like to come up now, she can speak.
And just a note to all the folks in the audience providing public comment today, if you could, come up to the podium and press the base of the microphone to light up green. That will indicate the mic is live, and you'll have 2 minutes to speak.
Ready?
Yes, go ahead, please.
I object to the accessory dwelling unit at 817 Spring Street and think it could be more compatible with the neighborhood. The AUD with a workshop combined are 1,300 square feet, while the original front house is 790 square feet. The main house, the front house, is of a cottage design, while the ADU is a modern design of rectangle boxes clumped together in an ordinary fashion. Not only is it not compatible with the neighborhood, but it's not compatible with the house that it accessorizes. The flat roof of 24 square feet height is possibly for a deck to enjoy their classic Riviera views. This project would totally meld into the housing tracts along the freeway in Ventura, but not in this single-family neighborhood. The monolithic house it uses as like-kind at 827 Spring Street. A member of city staff a couple years ago said they have no idea how that passed. If this is the example for the project, and I imagine it is, it doesn't meet the guidelines for the board in that it should be compatible with the fabric of the neighborhood. The rest of the 20 closest houses in the neighborhood are one-story cottages and Spanish adobes. There are two-story houses on each block of 7, 8, and 900 block of Spring. So the guidelines that the style should be compatible with the surrounding neighborhood and create a consistent architecture, this ADU does not meet the guidelines. I realize I heard that it doesn't matter, I guess, but I would like to ask how the FAR for this parcel will be compared to FARs with the rest of the neighborhood.
Is that a question to city staff?
Well, I think it's to you, all right. I don't know. Is it to you?
So
Whoever makes that determination.
Mr. Chair, through you, questions from the public can only be directed to you, and so not to city. This is not a conversation between city staff.
But before
you
we-
can direct a question at some point later on.
And before we get that, I just wanted to say that there is a house, a two-story house at Creo and Spring Street, where Spring Street ends, Creo Road, but that becomes a completely different neighborhood where it becomes like where the hill starts of the Riviera, and
Okay.
then, one of them is, at any rate, they showed some of them.
Got it.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, appreciate it.
Okay. I do not see any raised hands on Zoom, so the public comment is closed on this item. Thank you.
All right, I'll bring it back to the board for questions. Vice Chair Kloss, do you have any questions, please?
I do. Do you have an aerial view at all of the neighborhood? I'm wondering if you can show us where the two-story homes are that you've illustrated in your photographs.
Yeah, some of them are here in the street, the block itself, and the main items, but we do have a list of addresses that we could submit that would match
I was
the
hoping to
photos
see it
that
on
we
an
did.
aerial view.
Like a
so we
Google
could-
map, a Google
This is
aerial?
getting closer. The parcel map is helpful.
Yeah, so I can tell you, the three-story building is right here, two doors away from us. So there's a two-story and then a three-story right here, but yes, the others would need to be mapped.
Two-story is right across the street from us.
And there's a two-story right across the street from
You
us.
scroll up a little bit.
Yeah.
There you go.
Can you point those out on the parcel map, please?
On the parcel map, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So
That's the commercial lot, and then that little square is the three-story.
So this guy right here is three-story, and then your two-story across from you is, which one of these?
Right there. Directly across.
Directly across the street is a two-story, and we can see that in our photos if you wish. So this is our side of the street, there's the three-story. Oops. Other side of the street, is it?
The one to the left. The leftmost
There you
one.
go,
That's
right there.
across the street from us.
And the photos in the first exhibit were just one block to either side.
Yes.
And there's 14 projects that are two or three-story.
And then also on the back of our lot, directly behind it in the neighboring ones, there's a mechanics, which is a tall workshop space that is not a single-story home, for sure.
20,
right.
24 feet.
Is that Superior? Or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay. That's my first question. The only other question I would have, I guess, is why the particular archetype that you or style that you are using as opposed to something else? I guess what is driving that?
It's the team, the clients and the architects, and the nature of a two-story building where you want to minimize the roof slopes to minimize the height. Gable roofs are taller than flat roofs by nature. And you know, this house is, the age of this house is such that you can't frame it the way you used to with the same size framing. You can't insulate it the way you used to. You can't do the same windows and doors. I think it's a contemporary version of a space that they feel comfortable in and we feel comfortable.
So can you tell us,
Adding to the neighborhood.
from your perspective, how this is compatible with the neighborhood and with the surrounding homes?
Yeah, I think in the first collection of photographs, you can see it's all over the map. And so I think that's really what we're saying is no two things are alike. Variety is the spice of life. And, I mean, this is all over the place, right? Every one of these, there are parapets. Parapets is a very classic, older style as well. It's not as simply modern technique. And so I think it's eclectic. It's the epitome of eclectic. It's a two-story, it's a duplex zone, not a single-story zone, up against a commercial zone. And so we feel like all of these things give us some room to play.
Can we go back to the site plan for a moment? I'd like to look at, so this is perfect. So in this photograph, it appears that the addition, or I'll call it the shed, on the back of the residence runs to the one, I'd like to see that compared to the photo that you have of the back of the residence.
How so?
I'm just trying to understand, the bump out on the back of the residence didn't look like it ran as far to the, I'll call it north, you're calling that the north property line?
Yeah.
And I'm just trying to make sure there's not a discrepancy there. Yes, that's
been-
not running the full width there.
There's two different add-ons on the back. So it's two different shed roofs that are slightly different.
Okay, that's
So
what,
the
can you
one
zoom in on
pokes
that
out.
photo, please?
Yeah. See,
Okay.
it's just overlapping.
That's helpful between the gutter or whatever that finished
Yeah.
piece is and the change in the roofs.
Yeah.
It looked like it was just a portion of it. Okay, those were my only questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Board Member Anderson, do you have any questions, please?
Yes, so the first floor on the ADU, and if you could just confirm, the ADU that you're proposing is a 3-bedroom, right? 2 bath, so.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, and the first floor is access, there's just a lower level bedroom.
Yes.
Okay, got it. All right, and I think that staff, the upper windows in the 15-foot setback, those are allowed. That's a question, I believe, for staff. I'm
We
new.
have a 42-inch high sill for those, yes.
Right, I saw that.
Board Member Anderson, can you repeat the question for staff, please, for clarity?
Just per the ADU guidelines, upper windows proposed, I thought needed to be set back 15, no, okay, all right.
And just, Mr. Chair, through you to the rest of the board, that ADUs have a 4-foot setback, interior setback. So that's generally allowed, but you're looking at the different openings and different things and looking at the aesthetics of the project. So all of that is within your purview, but of course the applicant is allowed to propose, it meets the setback standards.
And frequently, we've had projects where we couldn't comment on the ADU, but we did have to comment on the deck. We only had purview on the deck, and so there's a recommendation that it be 15 feet away from the property line, but that's only a recommendation. It's based on compatibility. So maybe that answers your question?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, Board Member Art Kaling, do you have any questions, please?
I do. I understand it's an eclectic neighborhood, but are there any properties in the immediate vicinity that follow this architectural style?
Exactly?
Or very closely?
Yes. I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, at the end of I'm sorry, at the end of that's too much. At the end of Carrillo and Milpas, there's which is a two-story. It just was a little bit further. I didn't feel like it should take a photo of it, but it's 2-story modern, not exactly the same, but it's within the same stylistic realm, for sure.
Okay, and I just want to confirm for each story, the plate height's about 10 feet. Can you confirm that with me?
No, the lower is like 8'6".
8'6",
And the
okay.
upper is split into 2 different, so the living space is taller. The other one is limited by the solar height, so it's 9, I believe. The total height there with the parapet is only 20'11", I think is all we're allowed to do. So we've met.
What are the plate heights then? You said the taller one is what?
The taller one, if it's 24 and the workshop 9, it's probably with the parapets and roof afterwards, it's in the 11-foot range for a clear story window on the side, if you can see. There's
It's on page 9 of the PDF. I'm trying to better understand that.
Sorry, wrong way. Yeah, so there's the overall roof, and you can see we've got a clear story here between the lower and the upper roof.
Okay. And then I understand it's you mentioned in your presentation, the change in the grading. I understand it's still at concept, but are there any proposed features that are underway that for facilitating stormwater runoff or permeability?
Oh yeah, we would meet the tier that we're subject to. We believe it's tier 1 because of the existing demolition that we're doing.
That's all I have. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Board Member Klein, do you have any questions, please?
Yes, I believe you guys are early on, but could you walk me through the landscape and hardscape that you've kind of thought about? Looks like you're protecting existing trees and adding a new one.
We are planning to, yes. So the site plan. All right, so this is a street tree. This is a main tree on the property to be maintained, of course. And then we're this space would be utilized by a slight garden and with the addition of a tree.
And it seems from the street that existing tree is pretty large, and
It's
the
quite-
visibility is from the elevation. There's a large tree that would be blocking it.
Right. We tried to show that in the elevation at the end, but it's not as exact as the photo, which we can see. But yeah, that's roughly what's happening with the street tree here and the tree on the property. So we can go back to the photos and look at that too. Yeah, this guy.
Great, thank you. And then lastly, it seems the compatibility of there's multiple stories in the neighborhood. Do you have a height? I know you're staying below your max height, so do you have a comparison to the heights of the neighborhood by chance? Just curious.
No, we didn't canvas to see how tall that third one is. I mean, we imagine it's 30 feet, that's the max, unless it was done before that height limit came in, but.
Yeah, it's at least, yeah. And the one across the street, I would say, is in the 20 foot.
May I please ask the applicant to speak into the microphone so the
sorry.
rest of the,
Yes, I believe that 3-story is 30 feet, and the one across the street has to be in the 20-foot zone.
Thank you. Those are all my questions.
Yeah, do you have a picture of the house on the left? I see the one on the right.
This one?
Yes.
The one with the hedge?
Of course, yeah.
Who's that? Who just spoke?
Oh, I did.
Oh.
It's hard to see it.
Oh, got it.
You mean the one with the illegal front yard hedge?
Yes.
Yes.
The one that's oversized
That's
and
it.
illegal, yes. So it looks like that's an English Tudor type house, right?
It is.
Okay, those are my only questions, so I'll bring it back to the board for comments. Vice Chair Kalas, do you have comments, please?
Yeah, I don't really have any conceptual issue with the two-story nature of the ADU. It's an R2 lot. People who buy R2 lots in R2 neighborhoods should expect some development. I've been there before myself. But I do take exception stylistically to what's being proposed. I think there's opportunity to work with what you have, but I'm trying to think of some projects that would be good poster children. I'm thinking of the great little project that's down from the old original McConnell's on Cannon Perdido, the one where they've put the cow that faces the Santa Barbara High School cow. It's contemporary and yet it's not.
Do you mean the one next to the big development?
It was the one that was there before the big development, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's between that and the high school. Yeah, I think that's a good project to think about. I mean, this neighborhood is traditionally a Hispanic neighborhood. There are Pueblo styles, there are old homes like yours and the one that I used to own over on the east side that were cobbled together in the 20s. There are adobe homes that, I mean, I could see something like that possibly working here where you start to create a storyline like the front house was the little cottage that we lived in when we built the big plaster thing on the back. But I think what's presented is entirely too modern for the neighborhood, and I don't think it speaks to anything except the newcomer. So when I look at the 20 houses around this, they all feel older school than this, and I think there needs to be some sort of respect and deference paid to that, because you are the newcomer this time. So those are really my only comments.
All right, thank you. Board Member Anderson, do you have any comments, please?
Okay, I'm new, so bear with me. Yeah, I mean, the ADUs and the 2 stories I struggle with, honestly. They're difficult animals, and it's a new wave of our neighborhoods. And I'm all for maximizing density, creating affordable housing, and yours is family, even better. It's like we have two unique, like we need a property line down the middle of the site because they're two completely different structure, design-wise, compatibility-wise. So I as well am struggling with the compatibility. But I mean, they both have, you know, their own styles, the arts and crafts and the modern. So I'm trying to work my way into like, okay, yeah, I can jump onto this. But I'm struggling with it and where to go. So my initial thinking was is that, yeah, they're not working together right now. And what else? Yeah, I mean, there's lots of ways to do a 2-unit, you know, the R2 to deal with it. And the ADUs, they're just a different sort of an animal. So, I don't know. Those are my comments. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Board Member Arcalian, do you have any comments, please?
I do. So I'm very appreciative of the applicant in providing 3D renderings on the presentation at this concept review and this 3D model. It's kind of setting a new standard. It's the first time I've seen this, and it's really given me a good vision of what's going on. I would be in, you know, similar to Vice Chair Colos's comments. You know, I'm in support of a second story. You know, it's just the zone and seeing how the rest of the neighborhood is transforming over time. I have driven by this property before this review. In order for me to better understand, you know, to better understand this proposed style, I would like to see an aerial map at the next meeting. You know, particularly showing properties in the immediate vicinity, maybe like a 1 or 2 block radius, with showing which ones are 2-story with their heights and which ones have this modern architectural style. Maybe, you know, other applicants have come here doing color coding, and then I can see those properties on the map. I do have comments on changing the, you know, making the architectural style more compatible with the neighborhood. I'm concerned about the flat roof, but in order for me to really make more comments about that, I'd really like to see the map first and to just understand how the rest of the neighborhood is. Believe the balcony on the second floor is aesthetically appropriate. I am appreciative of the screen that you've placed on the side, just being respectful of the neighbors there. That's kind of the driving factor for, and it's quite a large, looks quite large, but having that screen is helpful. Anything else? That's all I have. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Board Member Klein, do you have any comments, please?
Yes, I think that, as other board members have said, the FAR and the height is compatible with the site. In regards to the style of architecture, I think it can work. I think just coming back and showing like where you've drawn your inspiration for, just a little more clear for everyone, just to tell the story of how the design came about that does tell the story it's compatible. And then when you come back, I'm looking forward to seeing landscape, hardscape, stormwater, all that as you move forward.
So I'm gonna say that the house in front was probably a mail order house out of a catalog, probably a Sears catalog from the 1920s. But I think I'm gonna have to follow up with Board Member Colas and Anderson. It's a little too modern. It needs to be more traditional. I would request you draw in, you can't, I get the neighborhood, and I know quite a few of those buildings that got those fabulous additions probably didn't go before a design review board, so they're, they got lucky, they got to do it. But in this case, I think you have an opportunity here, but it needs to be a little more traditional. It has to have more of a timeless feel to it, like it's been there for a while. They are two different buildings, but I think that the neighborhood gives you permission to have two different buildings, but not this modern. So I think that would be the direction to go. Yeah, I think that balcony is a great place to have that balcony, the way you have how that's set up. But those would be my comments at this time. So anyway, they're here for comments only. If someone would like to make a motion for comments only, that'd be great.
I would like to make a motion. Make a motion for this project to return to the full board indefinitely with the following comments. The board generally the board generally finds the proposed second story for this development to be compatible with the neighborhood. For the architectural style to be more compatible with the immediately surrounding neighborhood, and or to closely follow architectural elements of the existing residence on the site, and for the applicant to provide an aerial map of properties within in the immediate vicinity, 2 blocks that highlight 2 stories in their heights, and so which properties in the vicinity have a similar architectural style as the one that's proposed.
Keep going.
That's all I have, but yeah, happy to
I don't know
push
if
and
I can
pull.
align with that motion. Can someone make a new motion? I apologize.
May I jump in? So
Yeah.
we've got a motion on the floor, and so
Okay.
I just want to establish if there's a second to that motion.
Got it. Yes, I'm sorry.
If anyone wants to second that motion, and you could always, there can be an amendment to an motion.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. Do I have a second, please?
I'll second it and amend it.
Okay, thank you.
So, could you read back the motion, please, so I know what's on the table?
I apologize, I was out of the room at the time, but I believe the item was continued to full board with the architectural style to follow existing architectural elements that are existing on the site, provide a vicinity map within 2 blocks of the site which demonstrate a similar architectural style as the one proposed.
Okay, so I'm going to kind of repeat what I think the motion was and then carry on from there, deleting. So I think it was, the board is generally
I
in
can also
agreement, or
provide
there's a consensus that the second story is acceptable. We would like to see a vicinity map that illustrates the immediate neighborhood as defined in our guidelines, and that it's keyed with FAR information, how many stories each property is, and perhaps some sort of articulation on the architectural style of each of those properties. And we are directing the applicant to pursue a design that is more compatible with the underlying fabric of the neighborhood and less modern. That would be my amended motion.
So the maker of the motion needs to, do you agree with those amendments?
That's fine with me.
Could we change less modern to more traditional?
That's acceptable to me. Is it acceptable to you, Mr. Argilian?
Could we change it to be more compatible?
Mr. Chair, the applicant would like to ask a question. You're more than welcome to
Yes, you're
allow
the
that or
architect,
not.
please. Yes.
And I'm sorry, Ellen, would you mind coming up
Yeah,
to
why don't you come on up?
and speak in the microphone?
Ellen Bildston, architect of the project. I just am curious if it's an appropriate comment to tell us what style the project is supposed to be, as opposed to making specific comments about elements of what we've proposed, sort of a broad stylistic direction. I mean, I'm just curious if that's an appropriate direction to be giving, as opposed to specifics about what we've proposed.
Okay, so my concern is the window configuration, the plaster configuration, and the style of the, whatever that brown material is not, does not fit into the fabric of the already established adjacent buildings. What I was seeing is something that was built more of the time frame of what the existing house was built. So what did they do back in the 20s and 30s that had a flat roof? Because they did build flat roof buildings of that time. So that's kind of what I was seeing. Yes, it's different, but it has to be the same genre of what those existing homes were like. It's like they were all built at that same period, so that it kind of feels like they're all compatible to the neighborhood. But what I was saying about what Mr. Arkalian was saying, he wanted it to match the existing house. That's what I kind of thought you were saying?
No, if particular,
Well, I mean, that's a valid thing, but, okay, I guess we're talking way too much. Let's get this motion forward and,
So can I just jump in? So one question, so we have an existing motion that's been seconded, and then there was a second amendment to modify those two words. And so that's what Chair Miller, you had suggested. And we haven't heard a response from Board Member Arkalian with the consideration of
the
Ms.
word being more compatible.
Bildsten's, comments, and to what extent, again, your charge is to discuss, or is to look at neighborhood compatibility and to be able to make the neighborhood preservation findings. So as you see fit, that's what you're going to be commenting on. And if you choose to not accept that amendment, then we still have a motion with a second that exists.
I'm going to make it simple. I'm going to withdraw my amendment. So, can you read the motion, please?
Okay, this is what I have. The board is generally supportive of the proposed second story to be compatible with the neighborhood. Study the style of the proposed ADU to be more compatible to the neighborhood and with the existing residents. Provide the aerial map identifying the immediate neighborhood, 1 to 2 blocks, with identifying the FAR, the height, and the style of each residence, particularly focusing on if it's modern. And then pursue a design that is less modern and more compatible with the residents.
So can I make a suggestion? Instead of less modern, and there was another one, could we just say something that is more compatible with the genre of the neighborhood? Does that help alleviate everybody's?
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, with the genre of the neighborhood, and I noticed in the motion you mentioned for the style to be more compatible with the neighborhood and the existing residents. I want it to be and/or.
And then the only other thing I noticed in the motion was, I think it was the second to the last item, the way you read that back, there was something about, it was the FARs, the style, and then there was something in there about to show the modern houses or something like that. I don't think that's what we're asking for. We're not asking for them to prove their position. We're just asking for information on each of the lots relative to what they come back to us with.
Okay, we can just include FAR, height, and style. That's acceptable.
Yeah, that's what I was looking for, information.
Okay.
The second story, sorry, the second story is approvable. So
Yes.
is the height in question now? Can we just
I'm
document the style?
Yeah, I'm trying to better understand, the heights of the other second story. I know the second story is, I would approve it, but I want to better understand the heights in the adjoining neighborhood.
And the FAR is important because you think we're overbuilding for this lot?
I simply included that in my amendment because that was what Mr. Arakelian had requested, so I was just reiterating his request.
Yeah, just information to better understand the project.
Okay, so may I have a roll call, please?
Okay, here we go. Chair Miller,
Yes.
Vice Chair Colas,
Yes.
Board Member Anderson,
Yes.
Board Member Achillian,
Yes.
Board Member Klein.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, moving on to item 4. 229 Vista Del Mar Drive. This is a new item. Project design approval and final approval is requested. Proposal to instruct a 2-story, 1,200 square foot detached accessory dwelling unit, including a 200 square foot covered deck and a 200 square foot second floor deck, associated with the existing 1-story, 1,920 square foot single unit residence and an attached 44, I think that meant to say attached 446 square foot garage located in the Hillside Design District and non-appealable jurisdiction of the coastal zone. Staff hearing officer approval of a coastal development permit is granted on March 23rd, 2022. The proposal total of 3,566 square foot of a development on a 27,230 square foot lot is 75% of the maximum guideline floor to lot area ratio. Project design approval and final approval is requested. Neighborhood preservation findings and Hillside Design District and slope lot findings are required. Welcome, Kevin. Thank you.
And Mr. Chair.
Do you have some city
Yes,
comments?
and I
Yes,
think,
please.
and I didn't know if Board Member Anderson, I think she might have to excuse herself momentarily, but I do have comments, not only for the board, but for members of the public, and I just
Yeah.
want to clarify because
Yes.
it's a little confusing why this project is here, so there
Yes.
might be questions that I can answer. So
Please.
first, again, this project required staff hearing officer approval for a coastal development permit to allow proposed development in the non-appealable jurisdiction of the coastal zone. The state government code for accessory dwelling units in the coastal zone require show approval, but there's no associated public hearing. So what that means is that the staff hearing officer could accept written correspondence, but at the staff hearing officer meeting, it's just an announcement of a decision, that there's no public comment period. So it's really just a statement. And that actually was a final action, so that it's not an appealable decision of the staff hearing officer. So the staff hearing officer announced the approval of the coastal development permit on March 23rd of this year, and found that the project was consistent with the city's local coastal plan and applicable to all the different provisions within the code, and related guidelines, and that there were made the approval that there were no adverse impact to coastal resources as well. Again, this project was not, it didn't allow for an appealable decision. So even in your public comment, you may have seen an application for an appeal, but that was null and void on arrival, because it's just an announcement and that's the final decision. This project, or initially, because it fell under the government code, the city's accessory dwelling unit ordinance had not been extended. The Coastal Commission had not yet approved and adopted that for the coastal zone, so we were just falling under state code, and that meant that there was no design review. So that's why this project has never been to this board before. There was one element of the project that triggered design review, which was the second-story deck. However, it met all of the administrative design review criteria, so that's simply a staff approval. So again, that one particular piece did not come before the board because it met all the guidelines the criteria that are in the guidelines. But this applicant, we noted that they were kind of on the cusp of the city's accessory dwelling unit ordinance to be approved and adopted in the coastal zone. So they were kind of caught in that Bermuda Triangle. And what they needed to do was get an issued building permit for the ADU prior to the adoption. And so they were not able to get their building permit issued, and therefore, the trick is that the city's accessory dwelling unit ordinance, we have our ministerial design review criteria, and if you don't check off all the objective design criteria, then it does trigger discretionary review. And so this project triggers discretionary review because it's proposing a second story, or it's a two-story ADU and a one-story primary residential unit. So that's what triggers the discretionary review. And because they couldn't get their building permit prior to that, that's why they're here. This project has been deemed complete. It meets all of the zoning regulations, it meets everything about parking and land use and setbacks. And your review today is just as your normal charge would be to look at the design and look at the neighborhood compatibility and the architecture and the materials. Again, this is probably more so for the public because I know that a lot of people are very interested, but the Single Family Design Board is really just looking at the design and the aesthetics and the appearance and that neighborhood compatibility. So they're not looking at topics that are outside the purview in terms of density, parking, setbacks, land use. All of that has already been approved through the coastal development permit and the staff hearing officer. And same thing, there's really no discussion about ADU policy or home ownership or rental. That's really separate from your purview. So I just want to be really clear that if you have comments today, the things that are going to be the most useful for this board really should be on neighborhood compatibility, architecture, materials, and so on and so on. And I might ask for your help with that, Chair Miller. If that gets sidelined, I really want to make sure that we keep this project on track. But like I said, this project has been deemed complete, and it therefore is scheduled for both project design approval and final approval because the applicant has all the details, and he can walk you through the plans. I know that's a lot, but I just wanted to help understand all the nuances of why this project is here.
Got it. Question that keeps coming up to me. For the citizens that are out in this room, what recourse do they have if they don't agree to any of this? Who do they contact?
Well, so you're looking at the design and the neighborhood compatibility. And from the project design approval and final approval are both appealable decisions, but you have to establish standing. And you also have to, there's limitations to if you appeal a decision like this, that it has to be for, again, the design, neighborhood compatibility. You have to be explicit about that, and so that's, again, why I want to establish. But from the staff hearing officer decision and that announcement, that's really, again, state legislation.
That's
we
what I
kind of
wanted to get
identify
at.
Sacramento, and that's a little bit harder to turn that around. So
Your local congressmen are the people you need to contact. Okay, thank you. All right, if you'd like to present your presentation, that would be great.
Okay. My name is Kevin Moore, architect for the owner. Thank you all for being here tonight.
And hang on, I'm part of my interruption, and Mr. Chair, this is your meeting, but to the applicants, there are speaker slips.
Oh, yeah.
If we've run out, We ran
Oh, yeah,
out.
please get a
Yeah,
speaker
there's-
speaker slip and fill it out. This is SFDB, and then please give it to Ms. Gu, who's the lovely lady behind the screens.
Right, and we'll make sure that anybody who wants to speak will have a chance to speak. And if I could just ask the audience to please respect the applicant and the board in this deliberation, and to please be quiet.
Thank you. Hi, Kevin.
Okay, we'll jump in here. So our project site is located here, which is up on Vista Del Mar, and this is Las Positas. Here's a road down to Henry's Beach is down here, and let's just jump into the photos of the house. So there's an existing house, single-family residence. Here's the existing condition. Very similar to other houses in this neighborhood with board and bat siding with some along the front and stucco elsewhere. There's kind of the side yard, give you a sense of the kind of flavor of the existing residence. Other side of the house, this is sort of the southerly facing side, and there's this unusual little glass add-on on the back that looks out towards the mountains. And here's kind of the continuation of this. This is the back of the garage here. You can see that siding kind of stops, turns the corner and stops there and transitions. Let's go back up here. We missed one. And here's the back of the house. So here's that kind of unusual addition / sunroom that's there. This photo is also helpful to see that there is a transition here. So there's a bit of a flat zone here where the house was constructed, and then it does fall away down the hillside fairly quickly here. But there is a little bit of flat yard here and here. And what we're proposing is the ADU to be developed over here on this side in that flat zone. Okay. And so if you're facing the house, if you're facing the project site, this is the house that would be to the left, similar in style. And this is the house that would be to the right. You can see there's a horizontal siding in this case, so some tweaks to the plan there. Okay, and then here's a neighborhood context photo. I think that's helpful for everybody to see. Zoom out one. So here's the project site, existing house. And the red outlines, these are all parcels that have two-story elements. So just down the street, there's several down there. And as you come down here, there's several others. So they're kind of intermixed amongst the neighborhood, and in general, their massing is something like this, where there's still portions of single story with a second story addition of some sort. This one was developed in 2018, and you can see that it is 82% of the maximum allowable or the recommended FAR. So a little bit bigger than what we're proposing. And then here's some other houses in the area, a little, larger. And yes, it is chilly here. So just down the street, I know it's cold.
I'm going to try to
understand.
work on that. You all,
Yeah.
pardon me.
So similar in style with an addition, multiple, styles of roofs here. You can see the back. This is actually the back of that 2018 development there. And a little bit further down, Vista Del Mar. And again, another second story. and a little bit different take on that second-story addition here. And I think it's actually interesting. You can see the back of that 2018 addition in this photo. You can see it here. So fairly sizable. Okay, so here's the existing site plan, existing residence with the attached garage. Property lines extend down that hillside. There's a very mature tree here and an overhead power line, utility line coming across here. We've reached out to see if we can underground this, but unfortunately the pole that it's attached to is a parcel down here, so unfortunately it needs to stay. And then here's the proposed ADU location. So we'll zoom in. So what we've done is we've sited it kind of snugged up against the existing residence with an 8-foot separation, and parallel to that, so it's not up against the property line. So trying to minimize the impact to the front elevation and to the side yard. Here's the front setback. You can see that we're well back of that. We're about 30 feet back at this point. And we're also abiding by the side yard setbacks for the residents. So we're abiding by a 6-foot setback instead of the possible 4-foot setback. And that's really only happening here at this little pinch point right here. Then this proposal kind of veers off into the yard. So we chose this location mainly because of two reasons. There's kind of this top of ridge here. We needed to stay away from that for our soils reasons. So if we can keep it back here, we can do a more standard foundation. It also allows us to preserve this tree, which gives us a lot of, it just sort of helps to buffer the massing here. And it's just a nice tree to try and maintain. Existing floor plan of the house, and then here's our ground floor plan. So access to the ADU would happen via this pathway through a new fence and gate here to the front door. So all of this is well tucked away, and really from the street will read as part of, this will read as one house, not with have a separate entrance. Off the back, we have a little covered patio with the deck above. And if we go upstairs, we have the 3 bedrooms upstairs with the deck above. Fairly simple roof plan. Solar will occur along the southern area. And just to show you, here's a exterior lighting sconce in a finish that will match the windows. And those are minimal. They're proposed simply where we're required at exterior openings. Let's see, and then getting to the elevations. So here's the proposed elevation as seen from the street. Now, obviously, elevations are flat, and this is not exactly how you would experience the house, but what we're proposing, we feel, is compatible with the neighborhood as it's very similar to massing to some of the other photos that I've shown you previously, and the houses that are just down the street, similar in many regards. So we have the existing residence here with its exterior finishes, and we're mimicking that by our board and bat siding on the upper portion with a stucco finish below. The deck is supported with these two columns, and that would be skinned in a board and bat siding to match the top. This sort of this most southern elevation is also a concern for shading on this glass, so it kind of does double duty as a deck and a shading element. Here's this would be probably the most street visual view here, and you can see it's fairly narrow at that point and pretty minimal. And then here's our elevation that's facing the existing house with the front door. Let's see, and then just a couple of sections. So our floor to floor, or our floor to ceiling, is 9 foot for the ground floor and 9 foot for the second floor. So not particularly, you know, we're not asking for a large, tall ceiling. And let's see, doors and windows. So we'd have a dark bronze finish. The owner has plans to replace the windows in the existing residence to match at a future date. So that wraps up my presentation.
All right, thank you very much. I do believe we have rather extensive public comment, so I'd really appreciate it if you'd limit it to 2 minutes and try to avoid repeating what other people have already brought to the table so that we can kind of get through this as painlessly as possible. So,
Okay.
Ms. Gu, if you'd like to.
I'd like to open up public comment for those of the viewing audience on Zoom. Please go down to the bottom of your screen and click on the hand icon. In the meantime, I have to read the name. We did have one public speaker who submitted a speaker slip by the name of Paul Margolis. He had to leave the meeting earlier than expected, but he did want to state that he did submit a public comment,
Okay.
number 8. So if you can review that for him, he'd appreciate it.
All right.
The first speaker in the meantime would be Norman Gardner. Okay, followed by Cecilia Faw. Okay.
And if I could just ask everybody to get close to the microphone, just so everybody can hear that. Thank you.
Thank you. And I appreciate you guys doing this on a volunteer basis. This particular thing has just pissed off the whole neighborhood, as you can see by my neighbors and the others out there. This freestanding structure, 2-story, isn't particularly out of character, but being an independent unit is. There are no others in the neighborhood that have a standalone second house. This is a 4-bedroom unit they're putting in there, on top of a 4-bedroom existing unit that looks to us like a dormitory. Now, you may or may not be able to do anything about that, but as far as I know, the state law requires that, or allows the city to do something about it if the water, sewer, and impacts on traffic and public safety are affected. And I can tell you, we're in a drought. There's the water. The pumps down on Allen Road that do sewage work like, they're out there every 6 weeks fixing them. It smells like hell. More human waste isn't going to help that. The new traffic circle has changed the traffic patterns in my area. It's difficult to get from Allen Road out onto Cliff, and we've had to wait a little bit longer, and depending if it's a weekend or a holiday weekend, a long time. There are public safety issues associated with that. In the event of a fire, if it happens on Campanella Hills in the prevailing winds, we're in real trouble. Getting 108 homes out of there with 216 cars at least, plus, is not a pretty sight. Now, I don't know that you guys can help me with this either, but at some point the owner occupancy of this is going to change, and I'm wondering how you ensure that the owner is a resident on the property in 27 months. and the distance measured from the home to the bus stop is not correct. You can go on Google Earth and measure it to your heart's content, but that's measuring on a single plane, doesn't account for the ups and downs of walking down around there. And I am appreciative of your time. I'm sorry I'm so pissed off, but it's not at you.
I got it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, next speaker, Cecilia Falk, followed by Gary McDonald.
Hello. I believe that the unit is not compatible with the neighborhood. We do not have freestanding ADUs. They're all attached to the houses. And as Norm mentioned, you know, we're an aging population up here. You know, we have a lot of elderly and people that are retired, and we have one way out of there. We're at the top of the loop, and we're not going to get out if you keep adding more people. This is not the last unit that will be built on Vista Del Mar. Other people might, you know, build above the garage or above the house, like some of the similar things, but not a separate unit that has all those bedrooms, that is going to be packed, probably with 3 or 4 per bedroom, because it's near the city college. So I object to destroying our neighborhood and destroying the retirement of my wonderful neighbors that have worked all their lives, and they deserve to live in peace and quiet and not be overloaded with cars and people. And yes, I object to this unit, and if you could just do what everyone else has done in the neighborhood. They've built on the garage, they built on the house, it's connected. If they live there, it's even better, so they can manage who lives there and what happens there. We already have 2, what do you call those, bed and breakfast, Airbnbs. I've walked the neighborhood and I've seen a gentleman looking in the neighbor's window of a young girl. Garbage on the street, because they're not invested in our neighborhood. They just come and they go. Well, we're all invested in our neighborhood, and we care about one another, and we take care of one another. So that's why we're strongly objecting to the second house, separate house. It should only be what everyone else gets to do, as far as just adding to the house, and let's be reasonable. Be compatible with what's there, what we have there, and you could see what's there, and it's not a separate unit. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, Gary McDonald, followed by Jeff Harris. Thank you.
Good afternoon or good evening, as it may be. My name's Gary McDonald, and I live at 173 Vista Del Mar, just up the street, and I've been there 35 years. And the presentation was great. It looks all great, you know, pictures and all that, but this is already a rental house right now. The owners do not live there. It's rented out. So they're adding on to add some more rentals. And I believe the people don't even live in the county. And it's just like people are coming in, destroying our neighborhood. I've lived here all my life. You know, I'm born and raised in Santa Barbara. This is insane to try to build a separate building on this lot. All the other houses he showed are single-family dwellings. They added on for their family, not as rentals. And some of those houses are all the way down at the bottom of the hill. It's not up where we're at, and it's over in Campanella Hills. All these pictures he showed were great, but it doesn't show the true flavor of the neighborhood. You know, we've had kids raised there. We're all, like Cecilia said, retired, have a nice, quiet neighborhood. This is going to add to traffic. And, you know, at the beginning, it just feels like we're handcuffed with all the rules and regulations we were given that we can speak about. And it was already, seemed like it was already a done deal. And we had no rights to do anything, and we're the owners of our own properties. So, you know, it feels like we're handicapped to start with, and we're asking for your help. Basically, we're asking for help. And hope that you guys can see our point and our living conditions, you know. We've paid a lot of money for our homes, we pay a lot of taxes, and just to have a dormitory put up is completely off for the neighborhood, so thank you.
So I want to interject here and make something clear to you. The state of California has imposed that Santa Barbara has to build 8,000 units by a certain period of time, and if they don't build them, they're going to take the building department away from us, and they'll be controlling the city development via Sacramento. So the the building department is under a great deal of pressure to adhere to these quotas. And I'm telling you this because you guys need to talk to your politicians, because there's a group of militant politicians from the Bay Area that created these laws based on when all the dot-com companies started charging astronomical rents, and they thought this is a way of solving that problem. So it's a one-size-fits-all attitude, whether you're in Santa Barbara or Bakersfield or Santa Maria. So that's, you're speaking to that, and I just want you to be aware of that, because our purview is quite limited, quite clearly what Ellen has said, but I don't want to go
Yeah,
on with the
correct,
discussion.
but the other thing is you guys can say something about a separate building being built on this lot rather than being attached.
Okay.
So that
well,
would be an ADU too, correct?
Okay. Next speaker is Cameron Porter. Oh, yes, I'm sorry. I apologize. Jeff Harris, please. Thank you.
I guess I'll make this pretty quick since everything I was going to say I can't say. Parking, et cetera, et cetera. I don't believe it's compatible. I know that you consider the quality of life of the residents when you're approving these. I hope that you take this really seriously. Your hands are tied. Who do we talk to make sure that as people are building ADUs, with the spirit of ADUs, which on your own website are granny flats, et cetera, that they're not just being used as Airbnbs and just rented out? Is there somebody you can point us to follow up on that? To
There's
make sure
actually a
that
covenant that they have to sign, right? A deeded, notarized covenant agreeing that it is used as an ADU and not as a.
Do you know for how long?
A year.
Is it like low-income housing or 1 year?
It's a deed restricted, through you, Mr. Chair, to answer the
Yes,
public
please.
commenter.
I appreciate that.
It's a deed restricted item that is recorded at the county, and it says that the owner is stating that they shall not operate a short-term rental, which is a lease of less than 31 days. So it's very specific that it cannot be used as a hotel or short-term rental.
For how long? I mean, how long is that deed
It's
restricted?
recorded on the property, through you,
Forever?
Mr. Chair.
So forever?
In perpetuity.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay. Cameron Porter.
Yeah, hi there. My name's Cameron Porter. I live at 216 Vista Del Mar. I'm one of the people that have actually built up in the neighborhood a second story for my family. I do object to this ADU. The biggest objection is there's not another single property there that has 7 or 8 bedrooms in the whole neighborhood. It really is, in my opinion, too much for the neighborhood. My hope is that maybe city, or I guess this would be at the state level, could look at maybe some increased ordinances as far as bedroom sizes. So maybe if it were the bedrooms have to be a certain size to limit the number of bedrooms that could be allowed within 1,200 square feet, that may be able to help the situation. I know that you mentioned no parking. That would be a separate topic, but if you look at 7 or 8 bedrooms and considering who the tenants are going to be, there are going to be 6 to 7, 8 cars which do not fit on the property. And I think everybody here in the room knows exactly what this is going to be in our neighborhood. And as you can see from everyone here, everyone in the neighborhood, young and old, retired or not, are not impressed by this project. I think it might be beneficial if they went back and maybe scaled it back a little bit, if they could, be a little bit more considerate about the rest of us. I'm not opposed to ADUs. I'm in fact in favor of them, but I think it has to be within reason. And I do want to comment on the FAR. calculation because the lot size, if you look at the usable lot size of that lot, that is not anywhere near the scope of that FAR calculation, which I am very familiar with. So I wish you guys would look a little closer at that. I know it is based on lot size, but the usable lot size of that lot is nowhere near the square footage that you guys are talking about. So, thank you.
Okay. And last speaker is Julie Cada.
I'm going to probably repeat myself, but repeat what everybody's already discussed. But to Cameron's point, yes, there's a straight down.
A little closer.
To Cameron's point, this parcel is on a slope that goes straight down to homes below. So yes, the FAR is half of probably what they're talking about, because there's the land going all the way down. It's at least a 50-foot cliff going down. The property was sold with foundation problems and disclosed during the sale. The original home has an addition to it. That addition, I've been there, seen it. It slopes down. And there's a lot of erosion that happens yearly on this property just because it's got the cliff going straight down. And the homes below it, they're just afraid to death of this whole project. Let's see. So I'm probably going to repeat myself, but yes, there is not any homes in our neighborhood that have two homes on one single family lot. These are single family lots. The original homes are 1,300 square feet. You're putting a second home on a single family plot. Wrong terminology, I'm sure, but 8 bedrooms, 6 bathrooms. This is intended, definitely 100% intended to be rented. So it's an apartment building, not an ADU. It's not an accessory dwelling, unit, singular. It's units. It's not an accessory to the existing house by any means. It's a separate house. We have no two houses on properties in our neighborhood. It's not, and
wrap it up,
yes,
please?
this is points that we've discussed,
Yes.
I know, but there's,
If you can just wrap it up real
okay,
quick, that'd
there's
be
gonna
great.
be everybody renting that. There's gonna be 18 cars.
Got
We have a blind turn. You can't fit that many cars.
Okay, thank you.
all on our.
I got it. Thank you so much.
And
Got it.
fire.
Got the point.
Okay.
Got the point.
Also, what did Justin Church also already speak? Okay. Can Justin Church please come up as our last speaker? Thank you.
Is this on?
Yes.
Okay. Hey. Hi. Justin Church. I'm the one at the bottom of the hill from where this is proposed to be built. And yes, this is a concern for me. I can see the already existing house. I can see the top of it. From my perspective, it looks like it's really close. Yes, I can see on the Google Maps that it's not actually there, but I can see the top. And to have a second one right there, no, it's not going to happen next year or the year after, but eventually. That's a very steep hill. Yes, I'm concerned about the erosion and what that might do. My house is at the bottom of it. As well as like increased people, fire danger, that's all brush. You know, something happens there, it's coming right down. Two, it's the neighborhood. The value of that neighborhood is the people in it, people who care, who have lived there a long time. I've been part of that neighborhood since I was born. It will change. It's not Isla Vista. That's not why people live there. They live there for the small family homes that are there. And that's what we value and that's what we want to keep. The people that are proposing this they have no investment in it. It's not going to harm them one way or another. It's about profit. And that concerns me. We don't want a precedent to be set. And Yeah, that is our concerns, as well as the other things that have already been presented. I object to this. Thanks.
All right, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Chair. We did, of course, receive some written public comment consisting of one appeal to the staff hearing officer consisting of 7 letters, 33 petition signatures, and 25 public comments. We also did receive, during the weekend, 15 additional public comments for this particular item. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, I'm going to bring it back to the board for questions. And Ellen, you're going to have to help me in terms of our purview, because
Right.
There's been a lot said here, and I still, if you
Yeah.
can be real simple of exactly what our purview is, that'd be great.
Thank you so much, Chair Miller, and to the board. So again, your purview is the design aesthetics of the accessory dwelling unit. You're looking at neighborhood compatibility. And this is a similar project to what you're used to seeing. You have
Okay.
to be able to make the findings, and you're looking at to what extent it meets those, and are you able as a board to make the findings today? And we can always pull those up if you need to reference them. I want to acknowledge a couple things that were mentioned in public hearing that I think would be helpful.
Yes.
This project has already been deemed complete. Therefore, it means that all the city departments have reviewed it, all the different divisions, public works, engineering, transportation, planning, our fire, building. They look at it, the preliminary plans, and all of those divisions and departments have to say the stormwater management, wastewater. They all look at the plans and they have to deem it complete prior to scheduling project design approval. All of that was done prior to the staff hearing officer meeting in March. So this project meets all of the zoning code regulations and meets all of the other city requirements for those different items. So again, there's really, this project there are no issues there. It meets the size requirements that the accessory dwelling unit ordinance, it meets parking requirements, it meets setback requirements. So your purview, again, is really just to focus on the design aesthetics, the appearance, the consistency with the neighborhood, and that's really, I'll leave it at that. And if there are other questions that come up, I'm happy to jump back in.
All right, thank you. So I'm going to bring it back to the board for questions. Vice Chair Khalas.
Okay. Before I ask questions, I just want to address the crowd as well as the applicant. I'm in the dubious position of having grown up in this town, but also being an architect. So I feel empathy for both sides here. I'm seeing our town change dramatically. Density is increasing. Neighborhoods are going to get noisier. Your neighbors are going to be closer to you. There is going to be more traffic. This is a reality of us as a state having decided we are going to embrace density. And if we're going to have housing that is supposedly for the blue collar or the middle class, we have to do that. Otherwise, we have to make other choices. We have to push housing downtown and not into our single-family zones. Right now, they're reviewing the housing element, and I don't know where that is. Maybe Ms. Kokinda, you could speak to that. I think the draft housing element, which addresses the state requirements, it's under review right now by the city, I think.
At the state, it's with the state agency right now, and we're waiting for feedback, and we'll have more opportunities to take those changes. So,
Are you still taking public comments related to the draft?
that period is closed, and at this moment, but
Okay.
it'll be before council again.
I'm sure you can look for that online, and I would encourage you to follow that if this is a concern of yours. There really is no single-family zoning anymore. I hate to say it, but I'm just going to say it. There's not, because any single-family residence can have an ADU. So every single-family zone in this town can have 2 units on it. They're all duplex zoned now, basically, by default, because of the state ordinance.
Actually, 3 units. You can have a
That's
junior
right,
ADU.
because you can have an accessory or, JDU too. So that's just the reality of what we are grappling with here. So the decisions and the discussion that are going on right now have nothing to do with how much we can empathize or how much compassion we have for you. It's just we have to make comments based on our limited purview. And like the chairperson said, if you have issues with this, I would encourage you to go meet with your city council members, with your planning commission, with your assembly members, with your state senators. Go talk to them. Explain to them what this is doing to your neighborhoods and how it's devaluating your properties, if that's your opinion. And Kevin, I can appreciate your position too, because you're just trying to do what you can do within guidelines and for your client. So I have a question for staff to address a couple of the questions that the public had. One is the calculation of the distance to the bus. Can you explain how that's calculated, please?
So it's the calculation, it really relates to parking and whether or not you have to provide parking on site. And the government code allows if you're within half a mile of a bus stop, then you do not have to have parking on site for an accessory dwelling unit. This project meets that, and that was reviewed at the time of the staff hearing officer approval and decision.
Okay, and is that half a mile, is that measured by actual walking distance or just as the crow flies?
No, it's not. I mean, it's like, how do you use streets to get to the actual bus stop? So it's a walking, like basically using roads to get to a bus stop.
Okay, thank you. I think you addressed the question about how to ensure owner occupancy relative to the deed restriction. And I think if anybody has a question about how FARs are calculated relative to the usability of a parcel, you could contact staff about that.
Mr. Chair, and through you to Vice Chair Claus, I just want to say that home ownership or the living on site as the homeowner used to be a policy, it no longer is. So that's not a requirement. That is not a requirement anymore. It used to be, so that's very confusing from a policy. So that again is a state mandate that was another policy change. So that's no longer in place.
I acknowledge that you're trying to get our attention, but it's just not the order of operations, so I apologize. Okay, can we go, so I guess one question I had for the applicant is, or a couple questions. So I did go out and drive around the neighborhood, Mr. Moore, and take a look at this, and I understand why you've cited this where you have. I think you made that very clear, and I'm glad to see the trees remaining. I'm a little bit concerned about the fact that we have a second story on, I'll call it the downhill slope side as you're looking at the house. Can you speak to that and or why you might have elected to, I'm wondering why you didn't elect to maybe step some of the second story massing back over the existing residence? Was there a specific reason that this was driven to be detached, or could the downstairs have been sort of separated and then the second floor sort of sitting over the top of both the existing residence and the new build?
Yes, so part of that has to do with whether it's detached or attached, and maybe staff can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe if it's an attached ADU, you're limited on the amount of square footage.
I might have to look at that regulation because I only looked at the project as a detached, so I don't have that, but I can look it up and we can follow up on that.
Okay. That would be helpful to know. Could we go to the elevations, please? Can Can you confirm what your plate heights are for both the first and the second story?
So they're 9-foot plates.
Okay. And do you know what the plate height is of the existing house? The standard 8-foot?
The garage is a little lower, but I believe the existing house is a tall 8 feet because has a raised foundation.
Okay, so it's 8 feet plus whatever your,
Right.
okay. And is the proposed structure a slab on grade?
Yes.
Okay. And is there a reason why you elected, I can guess, but I'll just ask the question, why you elected to use a gable, I'm sorry, a hipped roof condition as opposed to a gabled roof that would have been a little bit more in keeping with the main residence on the property?
Yeah, I mean, the intent was to try and keep the ridge height as low as possible and to minimize the mass to the extent possible. You know, obviously with that gable end, you get much more mass at the perimeter of the building.
And are the slopes matching that on the existing residence? The slope of the ADU roof?
The existing residence has a 3-in-1, and we're proposing a 4-in-1.
Okay. Roofing materials are similar?
Yes, comp shingle.
Okay. And then if we can look at the floor plans, please. So can you just speak to any privacy issues that may derive or not from the location of, I think there's a deck over that, is there a deck over the covered?
Yes, there's a deck over this location.
Okay, and so how does that correlate to, I'll call it the southerly neighbor, or south on the page anyhow?
Well, it's probably easiest to see on this site plan here. So let me scooch down here. Here's the property line. Here's that deck. And, you know, this is the back. Obviously, this is the backyard of this house. The deck is over 15 feet away from the property line. Also oriented in a way to look not at that adjacent residence.
Kind of orients towards Elings Park.
Correct.
Okay. And topographically, though, there is a drop between the proposed ADU and the parcel to the south, right?
Correct. There's a retaining wall that running along here.
So you have the large tree that provides some screening. Is there any other vegetation along that common property line?
There are some existing trees along here and a pretty mature hedge along here. It's not clear whose side the hedge is on.
Did you say pretty mature or premature?
Pretty mature.
Okay, all right. Just want to make sure I heard you. Okay, those are the only questions that I had. Thank you very
And
much.
Chair Miller, through you to answer Vice Chair Colossa's question about the accessory dwelling unit size. Yes, Mr. Moore is correct in that the size, if it's attached, size is dictated if it's attached or not. And so there are limitations if it's attached to 50% of the primary residence. It can't exceed 50% of the primary residence. But if it's a detached accessory dwelling unit, as this one is, the size is dictated by the lot size. So in this case, this lot is over 15,000 square feet and can propose up to a maximum of 1,200 square feet, as the applicant has done here.
So detached 1,200 max.
Only for lots that are over 15,000 square feet. If other smaller lots, the size goes down.
Okay, otherwise 50% of existing square footage if attached.
Board Member Eric Killian, do you have any questions, please?
I do, yeah. On the site plan, I'm noticing I'm noticing the roof line along the, yeah. So along Street View, the roof line of the existing garage in the ADU is just, it's running along kind of like a straight line. No, how do I, what's the correct term? It's running along the, the west elevation. Yes. Yes. And then if you just keep on going down, right, I mean, it's literally just straight. Has there been any consideration? I know I'm seeing some space between the ridge in the back to kind of push back this building so it kind of tucks into the site a little more. I know that you have some limitations, but any kind of study there in pushing the building back?
I mean, we placed it here because we felt it was appropriate for the topography, for the view from the street, and also to try and maintain, our as much flat usable yard space as possible for both of these residences.
Okay, and then so I'm seeing the existing trees on this sheet. Do you happen to know the heights of those?
I don't, but we can go back to the photos and get a better sense.
Just trying to, I'm asking this, I'm trying to better understand the screening of that balcony.
Understood. So here's that mature tree we're talking about trying to work around. So it's sizable. I don't know, it's probably 30, 35 feet. And then hard to see those others along the property line, but they are, you can get a sense there. They're probably in the 15 to 20 foot range, depending on which one you're talking about.
Okay, got it. That's all I have. Thanks.
Board Member Klein, do you have any questions, please?
Can we look at that view from the street right there really quick? My one question is how, did you think of adding any trees to the front to kind of hide the new massing there?
We're certainly open to that. I think that would be appropriate.
Good, that's my only question.
I think all my questions were answered from everyone else, so I'll move it to comments. Vice Chair Kalas, do you have any comments, please?
Yeah. I'm just going to keep it really simple here. I'd like to see a reduction in plate heights on both floors. I'm concerned that the roofing pitches do not match, nor the nature of the roofs match, although I understand why you've done that, Mr. Moore, in order to keep height down. And I understand the desire to keep more open space at the rear of the yard. My concern is with the two-story massing being on the south side of the property where there is a grade difference. Basically, you're on the low side of the property, and rather than kind of following the topography, that kind of, it just juts up right there against this neighbor. So that's a concern of mine. It feels like it's really sort of ominous and overbearing, for lack of a better way of putting it. So I would prefer to see more square footage on the first floor and a limited second square footage, so that maybe there would be an opportunity to maybe match some roof lines. If you kind of lower your plate heights, hunker it down, limit the second floor a bit, I think you might be able to get this to blend a little bit better with the existing residents. It feels disjointed to me. it's like it wants to be a part of it, but it doesn't. I think in your presentation, you were talking about, we really want it to read kind of all as one thing, and yet you've got this sort of long and then this just pop-up. And I think if there was a way to bring some of that massing visually over the existing residence or pushed back on the parcel, I think it would help it a lot. And I would be in support of additional front yard screening. Those are my comments.
Thank you. Board Member Eric Kelly, do you have any comments, please?
I do. I'm on page 15 of the plans. View 3. I feel I'm looking at the left, and I'm looking at the relationship between the first and second story. I just feel like there's just some bulk there, and just to add on to Vice Chair Colossus' comment, I feel like following those comments, it would kind of provide a remedy to this issue. It's just this kind of massing does not feel compatible. Just first and second story just coming up, like it looks a bit linear, and I feel like it can just be studied and broken up a little bit on the second story. That's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you. Board Member Klein, do you have any comments, please?
Yes, I think the location on the site makes sense where it's located, and I would also add that additional tree in the front would help with the massing, hiding it from the street.
All right, thank you. This is a hotel or an apartment. It's not. It's I would call it a disguised apartment complex. It's clearly an investment property. The size, bulk, and scale of this is not just doesn't work with the existing home. The plate heights have to be lowered. I can't support this at all. I think it needs to be part of the house, not stand free alone. And the only reason it's standing free is so that you could make it as big as you can. But I'm going to just say I can't support this project. I'm just a no, and I don't know where that goes since it's already been approved, but I'm just going to say I can't approve this. I'm just going to be, my stand is that this is not an appropriate structure for this existing neighborhood. It should be on the house or part of the house like the other two-story additions that are in the neighborhood. It needs to be a lot smaller and less impactful with the neighborhood. So those are my comments.
Mr. Chair, so this applicant is requesting project design approval and final approval. So I think we'll.
You have to do both.
It's.
What if they don't get it? I mean, it's like
I think
you're backing us. Not you personally, but it's like you're backing us into a corner. Like we have to approve it.
No. What I mean by that is, if you wish to continue it, you can continue the. It can be continued for. Another review, and it would still be scheduled for project design approval at the next hearing, but you can continue the item and give the applicant, specific feedback on what you as a group want to see changed, if anything. And so that's what I'm trying to suggest. And the approval is just that this project receives the coastal development permit. So this project still requires the project design approval and final approval by SFDB.
All right, so I'm going to retract what I said about a no, and I'll just say I recommend that it be part of the existing home, that it matches what the other second-story houses have done in the neighborhood, and not be a separate unit. That would be my recommendation. Anyone like to entertain a motion? Looking at you.
I'll see if I can walk the line here. Okay, so I think the general consensus, and I know, Katie, you're an outlier, but I'm just speaking for 3 out of 4 here. I think we would like to see plate heights reduced. We would like to see a more compatible configuration of the roof, that being both in pitch and the nature of the roof. We would encourage screening from the street, and we are directing the applicant to either pursue a greater mix of first and second story in order to reduce the bulk of the second floor, or to consider reducing the size of the ADU and incorporating it and somehow attaching it to the existing single-family residence. It's the motion.
Do I have a second?
Can we just repeat it one more time? Just for me. Yeah.
Mr. Chair, as a point of clarification, can I ask a question?
Yes, yes, please.
And this would be directed at staff. So if the design board is requesting a reduction in the square footage, that would equate to a reduction in number of bedrooms, what does that mean?
The density doesn't change because it's just one unit, through you, Mr. Chair. So the density, this is one unit. I think it's a little different than ABR HLC projects that are multiple units where you're reducing, you can't take away a unit. But this is just considered an accessory dwelling unit as one. So I hope that answers your question. I don't think it's, and if there's any follow-up to that, I can look into it, but I'm fairly certain that that would be how it would be approached, kind of a one.
All right. Good question.
And to be clear, I don't think we're directing you one way or the other. We're just saying one or the other. Yeah. In terms of whether it's attached or detached or reconfigured.
Okay, here we go. Continued indefinitely to full board. Reduce the proposed plate heights. Provide a more compatible roof in pitch and slope, I believe. The board encourages providing screening from the street. Pursue a greater mix of the first and second story, or reduce the proposed size of the ADU and find a way to attach the ADU to the residence.
That's correct. If you could just make the correction, Ms. Gu, that the roof is in pitch and the nature of the roof. So it's, we're specifically addressing gable versus hip.
A second.
Okay, may I have a roll call, please?
Here we go. Chair Miller,
Yes.
Vice Chair Colas,
Yes.
Board Member O'Killian,
Yes.
and Board Member Klein.
Yes.
And the motion passes. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Chair Miller, if we could adjourn, please.
That was the last project on our agenda. I will convene Single Family Design Board for our date today, which I can't find it.
Thank you.
I'm adjourning it. Thank you. Bye.